Hey guys! Today we'll be recapping the manhwa, Death is the Only Ending for the Villainess. Please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, as it really helps our channel grow. Thanks. Our story begins with the illegitimate child of a wealthy family. Sounds like a promising start, right? Wrong. For our protagonist, life is anything but promising. Although she would have preferred to be sent to an orphanage, she was brought into her rich father's home and begrudgingly introduced to her new brothers. And they don't exactly have a great sibling bond. Even 6 years later, she still hates them. But luckily, by this point, she's moved out, free to live her own life away from the struggles of her childhood. When she was younger, she was tortured endlessly by her half-brothers, and her father never did anything to help. That's why she studied so hard, so that she could get into a prestigious university and finally move out. Now she has her own life and her own friends. One day at university, she overhears some people talking about a popular new game called The Ladies' Love Project. Our heroine gives it a try, playing the character of Yvonne, a 17-year-old daughter who lived as a commoner before returning to a rich family after 6 years of separation. The aim of the game is to earn popularity and wealth by getting friendly with the male leads and defeating the villainess. Sounds like pretty much every manhwa, doesn't it? 3 hours in, she's hooked, finding the story of Yvonne strangely comforting given their similar backgrounds. She has soon finished every ending, unlocking another secret ending which you can buy for 100,000 won. Yikes! No thank you! There is also a way to unlock the hidden ending for free if you complete the game on hard mode. It's getting late and our protagonist has school tomorrow, but it's too late to turn back now. She starts the game again, this time playing as the villainess, Penelope Eckart. Penelope was brought in to replace the real daughter Yvonne after she went missing 6 years back. As the villainess, it's especially hard to raise the favorability points and win the hearts of the male leads. It seems the difficulty on hard mode is extreme. If she makes one wrong move, she ends up dying. It's a shame. From the villainess's perspective, it actually seems like she's more of a victim than a villain, but everyone keeps being so cruel to her. She didn't even do anything wrong. At this point, the young girl doesn't even care about unlocking the hidden ending. She just wants to see the villainess be happy and alive, probably because she feels sympathetic. Her story and Penelope's are really quite similar. If nothing else, she wants to make sure she gets the endings with those evil brothers. She ends up spending the entire night playing the game and gets nowhere. As the sun is rising, she finally falls asleep. When she opens her eyes, she wakes in a strange room with a maid calling for her. It looks like she played the game so much that she actually fell inside it. Now she is living as the villainess. You know, the one everyone keeps trying to kill? Yeah, not an ideal position to be in. Hit by a sudden pain in her arm, Penelope looks down to find needle marks covering her skin. She looks up at the maid and tries to yell, but no sound comes out. The maid calmly tells her that her bath is ready and leaves with a smirk. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I do not like that girl's vibes. And if that wasn't sus enough, the bath she was referring to is actually just a cold bowl of water. She's hardly had a chance to wash her face before the maid returns, summoning her for breakfast. And breakfast is even worse than the bath. Just some moldy bread and gross-looking soup. Is this the way she's been treated this whole time? Because I can see why she became the villainess. Penelope glares at the maid, and finally, she gets a chance to speak, in the form of a dialogue option. Just like in the game. Even at this early stage, the wrong choice could mean death. Fortunately, our heroine has played enough times that she knows which to pick. Unfortunately, that means she has no choice but to eat this disgusting meal. As soon as she makes her decision, her body begins to move on its own, shoving mouthful after mouthful down her throat. The maid is shocked, and once brother number 1 arrives, she becomes nervous. Reynolds sees Penelope struggling to swallow her food, sees the tears she's struggling to hold back. He yells at the maid and commands her to leave at once, warning her that his father and brother will both be informed of this incident. And then, just to really go the extra mile, he orders a butler to take the maid away and imprison her. Okay, well that's a good start. Was anyone else half expecting him not to care about Penelope? After the maid is dragged away, Reynolds approaches his sister, asking if she's alright. He was expecting her to flip the table and scream like her normal behavior, but if she did that, Reynolds would have stabbed her in the neck with a fork, so he's probably not the person to trust in this situation. I mean, it's partly his fault that this situation happened in the first place, since all the staff mistreat Penelope, and they only do so because the family turns a blind eye to their bullying. Another choice has to be made when Reynolds asks if he should call a doctor. They mostly seem rude, so Penelope picks the least offensive option and says he shouldn't bother. As soon as she answers, his attitude turns cold. Reynold points out that none of the doctors would take the time to see her anyway, and then tells her to eat up and die. So much for brotherly love, huh? But as he's walking away, she notices that his favorability bar has gone up by 7%. Honestly, I'm not sure how an interaction like that could have earned her any points, but whatever works, I guess. Once she's alone, Penelope takes a moment to examine her appearance. She really does look just like the character in the game did. Penelope was originally a common girl who didn't even have a last name. She lost her mother at the age of 12 and was adopted by the Duke Eckart because she looked so similar to his missing daughter, the heroine, Yvonne. As she grew up, Penelope lost the resemblance and the favor of the family. Now she is known as the tantrum-throwing fake lady whom everyone hates. It's basically the same story as our protagonist. The only difference is, she escaped. Now that she's in Penelope's body, it's like being trapped in her old life, only with the settings stuck on hard mode. Literally. Determined to survive, she tries to write down everything she remembers from the game, every choice which led to death or a slightly better outcome. On hard mode, favorability is difficult to gain, and can fall all at once with the wrong decision. Unlike in normal mode, favorability starts at 0% or even minus figures with some characters. If favorability becomes negative after this point, there is a high likelihood that death is just around the corner. There are 5 total targets in the game. There's the 2 brothers, Derrick and Reynold Eckart. Derrick is the eldest son, heir to the dukedom. He's a strict and cold man who is always busy preparing to inherit his father's position. He doesn't pay much attention to Penelope, but does seem to hate her for taking the place of his missing sister. Reynold, on the other hand, is very open about his hatred. He's destructive, hostile, and quick to pick a fight. In normal mode, they're the easiest target since they're predisposed to love Yvonne. So by the same token, they're basically predisposed to despise Penelope. That makes them pretty tough targets, so Penelope rules them out. Next is Kalisto Regulus, crown prince and heir to the Eoka Empire. Despite his romantic position, he's a violent man who seems to care nothing for anyone but himself. In normal mode, he changes after meeting Yvonne and turns his cruelty on Penelope instead. He caused the most deaths in hard mode, so he's also not the best choice. Then there's Vinter Burdani, a wizard and son of the Marquise. He also moonlights as a mercenary and hides all sorts of backhanded deals and trades behind his reputation. He knows everything about everyone, which is how he found Yvonne in the original story. She doesn't remember much about him, but that could be a good sign. At least he wasn't actively trying to kill her like the brothers or the crown prince. The last target is Eklies, a young apprentice knight for the Eckart family. Currently, he's a slave, but he was once a noble in a country now under the control of the Eoka Empire. Of all the male leads, he seems the most hopeful, especially because he's always pitied the villainess, even in the original plot. You never know, all of that could change in hard mode, but for now, Eklies is the best bet. Hard mode sort of acts like a prequel, which means if she wants to survive, Penelope has to reach 100% favorability with one of her target characters before her coming-of-age ceremony, the day Yvonne returns and the main plot begins. Penelope is determined. She will do whatever it takes to survive and to return to the freedom she fought so hard for in her real life. A knock on the door announces the arrival of a butler, summoning her to meet the Duke. Penelope is stunned that a butler would enter without knocking. I mean, did he not see what just happened to the maid? Another set of options appears, and she picks the calm one. She follows him through the halls, feeling the eyes of all the servants as she passes by. They don't bother her. In her old life, she got that attitude every day in her father's house. But then they arrive at the Duke's study, where her father is sitting at his desk. It all feels a bit too close to home for Penelope, but she keeps her cool and curtsies politely. He asks about the commotion this morning, giving her the option to lash out and act rude again. As usual, Penelope picks the safest option, pretending it was nothing. She flinches when her father says her name. He points out that she's nearly 18, which means the coming-of-age ceremony is fast approaching. The Duke says that in the 6 years she's been here, she hasn't proven her worth as an Eckart, promoting another dialogue option. Spotting a slightly pathetic one, Penelope grabs it and falls to her knees, apologizing for her wrongs and calling him father for the first time in years. That must have sparked something in his heart because suddenly a hidden quest is completed, unlocking the option to remove dialogue options. Now she can act as she pleases. Back in the real world, she ignored this option, but right now it might mean the choice between life and death. So of course, she takes it. Penelope launches into a full apology, claiming the incident this morning was all because she hadn't paid enough attention to her servants. Of course, that's not even a little bit true, but the truth doesn't matter right now. What matters is getting on her father's good side. She asks him to let it go just this once and promises to prove her worth to the family until her coming-of-age ceremony, begging for forgiveness. Well, that was intense. Her father is so surprised by this sudden change in attitude that he gets a little awkward. He agrees to give her another chance, but warns her not to let it go to waste. Penelope thanks him and leaves the room, sighing with relief as soon as she is out of his sight. The Duke isn't a target character, so at least he doesn't pose a threat to her life. But it couldn't hurt to improve her favorability with him anyway, whether the game registers it or not. But as soon as she's out of his office, another situation presents itself. Finally, we are introduced to Derrick Eckart, and boy is he mad. He approaches Penelope slowly. The maid who was imprisoned this morning had worked for the Eckart family for nearly 10 years. Apparently, no one else was willing to be her maid, no matter how much money they offered them. She was the only one willing to take the job, and now she's gone. I mean, that's not Penelope's fault. It was Reynolds who ordered her out, but Derrick doesn't seem to care about that. And more importantly, his favorability is at 0%. Whatever she does next could be the difference between life and death. Hoping for help, she turns the dialogue back on to see 3 equally dangerous options. Looks like she's going to have to figure this one out on her own. Trusting familiar tactics, Penelope apologizes for creating such a scene this morning and even refers to him as young master. Just like his father, Derrick is surprised. She then goes on to tell him there's no need to fire the maid and promises to live quietly from now on so that she won't bother him. Ugh, this is so sad. It's so unfair that she has to humiliate herself like this over and over again just to survive. If it were me, I would have punched them all in the face by now. And just like his father, Derrick agrees to let her off one last time. Not without a rude comment about her arrogant attitude, of course. After one of the most stressful mornings of her entire life, Penelope still hasn't actually eaten yet. Unless you count the moldy bread. She's so exhausted that she wobbles as she tries to walk away. Suddenly, Derrick grabs her arm to steady her, and after a long moment of eye contact, asks if she needs a doctor. What is with these brothers? Seriously, one minute they're horrible and the next they're kind. Penelope knows better than to fall for it. He knew she wasn't in the wrong, and yet he still gave her a hard time. And he might have her killed if she tried to argue back. She flicks his hand away and stiffly tells him not to concern himself with her before walking away. Once back in her own room, she falls on the bed, grateful to still be alive after so many tense encounters. It was a good thing she played the game so fiercely that night. She remembers that Derrick's favorability drops whenever she calls him brother. Clearly, young master did the trick instead. Before she can think any more about how to stay alive, her eyes start to close. She still hasn't eaten after all. Our heroine must be exhausted. In her dream, she remembers being pointed out by Reynolds, accusing her of stealing something. Everyone looks much younger, so this must be a memory from Penelope's childhood. Yvonne's necklace was found in her room, and since Penelope isn't allowed in her bedroom, it's also pretty suspicious that the birthday gift her father gave Yvonne ended up in her drawers as well. It's obvious she was being set up, though her brothers and father didn't see it that way. Then one of the butlers confesses that he saw Penelope on the 3rd floor a lot lately, and when he went to check on Yvonne's room, the door was open. Wow, were they still this cruel when she was just a child? Her father wouldn't believe a word she said, and when the jeweler came to visit the mansion the next day, she spent all his money on gems and necklaces, not caring about the consequences. From then on, she never called the Duke father again. Until today, that is. Back in the present day, Penelope awakes from her nap to find the head butler at her door. Again. He didn't knock this time either. Apparently, there is an urgent matter that needs her attention. The question of a new maid. It's not actually that urgent, and again, he rudely intruded on a lady in her chambers. Penelope asks for his name and then asks what her name is. She points out that she has a last name, meaning she's a noble. And yet he dares to enter her room as and when he pleases? Plus, it looks hella shady for an old man to be entering a young girl's room while she's in bed. The butler falls to his knees at once and apologizes. Penelope doesn't forgive him and tells him to send someone else if there's anything urgent in future. Maybe she was a little harsh, but that's the same guy who framed her all those years ago. The next person to visit her is the head maid, who is twice as polite as that old guy. They do now actually have to decide on a new maid, but to the servant's surprise, Penelope asks for Emily, the same girl who made her eat slop yesterday. The maid tries to protest, but when she insists, the head maid agrees, so long as the Duke approves it first. It seems no one will accept her status or authority, so instead of being belittled, Penelope offers to go and get his approval herself. Right now. That would involve telling the Duke the whole story. And if he heard that the other servants stood by while a member of his house was served mold, well, let's just say that head maid wouldn't have a head much longer. After that, she agrees to bring Emily back at once. The poor girl is shaking when she comes to bring her breakfast. A beautiful steaming plate of food fit for a noble. But Penelope isn't one to let bygones be bygones. She orders Emily to bring her a needle, preferably the same one she's been using to prick her with every morning. Which is so messed up, by the way. Just like the others, Emily begs for forgiveness, but when her mistress insists, she pulls the needle from her hair. And then, while the maid is watching, Penelope stabs herself with it. Emily flies into a panic, as anyone would if they just watched someone stab themselves. From now on, Penelope tells her maid that she will accept any cruelty she throws at her, be it moldy food or cold dishwater. But every time she does, a new wound will appear on her hand, and after a while, someone might get suspicious. It's a pretty metal tactic, but it seems to be effective. Silently, Emily does as she is told and clears the table without protest. Suddenly, the door slams open and Reynolds storms in, screaming at his sister. When his gaze lands on Emily, he turns violent, so Penelope quickly hides a fork and tells her maid to leave the room. She may be cunning, but she's not cruel, and she doesn't want to see her maid get stabbed herself for once. She hurries out of the room, leaving Reynolds to ask Penelope why the heck she rehired that woman. He is furious that someone as low as a servant dared to mock the Eckart family, so this doesn't really have anything to do with his sister, just pride. But that line is familiar. She remembers that he said the exact same words about Penelope in normal mode in the game. Is this a sign that things are improving? Penelope can't help but laugh, which annoys Reynolds even further. She explains that she already went to see their father about this incident, and neither he nor Derrick wanted Emily to be fired. Reynolds is surprised at first, and then becomes annoyed. He thinks she should have just refused them, which is crazy. They wouldn't have listened, or even worse, they might have turned violent. And besides, it's not just Emily. The whole staff are against her, so a new maid might have done the same thing in the end. Penelope desperately wants to tell her brother that this is all because of the way his family treats her, but she has to keep her cool. He's still at -3%, remember? She admits that she only went to see the Duke to beg for forgiveness. Reynolds looks like he might faint from shock. Without being explicit, she hints that this is all because of the commotion he caused and begs him to let it go. But as we know by now, that's not his style. Reynolds yells at her, accusing her of having no self-respect and provoking her to have a tantrum like usual. For once, Penelope doesn't stay silent. It was actually him who put Yvonne's necklace in her room that day, so why is he annoyed? Didn't he expect this to happen? I'm kind of surprised Reynolds doesn't immediately kill her, but Penelope adds that she's not still annoyed, and admits that she's made plenty of mistakes too. But she's nearly an adult now. She can't keep acting like a child and screaming every time something doesn't go her way. Reynolds catches her gist and asks if she's planning to leave after her coming-of-age ceremony. Well, yeah, that's the plan. Seriously, did he think she was going to hang around after the way he's treated her? Penelope is just asking him to leave when she catches a strange expression on his face. His favorability starts to shift, and for a moment she's worried this might be the end. But then it increases by 6%. Woohoo! She's finally over 0. But you wouldn't know it by the way he acts. Reynolds storms off, saying he was stupid to be concerned for someone like her. It's still a long way from a confession, but it's certainly a start. A few days later, a letter arrives from the royal palace inviting her to join the second prince's birthday banquet. Apparently, Derrick has already approved her attendance and told her to get ready fast. Ordinarily, it would be a nice occasion, but going to the palace means there's a chance she could see the crown prince. You know, the guy who killed her over and over again in the game? Panicking, Penelope asks her maid if the Duke will also be attending. As it happens, her father is busy, so Derrick will be accompanying her instead. Great. 2 rays of sunshine in one room. What could possibly go wrong? Maybe she could throw a sickie, but then she would risk losing favorability with Derrick, and that could be dangerous. But then, being alone with the crown prince might even be more dangerous. Then Penelope has a thought. What if she just died? Maybe she would wake up in the real world. It sounds risky, but it could be the fastest way back, and there's always a chance the reset button would appear just like in the game. It sounds insane, but she's desperate. So Penelope decides to attend the banquet, hoping to meet with the crown prince and die on purpose. The next day, she is bathed and clothed by a whole suite of maids who have suddenly changed their tune and become super friendly. They want to cover her in accessories and outfits that will show off her beauty, but Penelope orders everything to be kept simple and modest. Even like that, she still looks stunning. When she and Emily are alone, Penelope makes a point of asking for gloves to cover up the needle marks. Clearly, she's not done toying with her maid. Once she's ready, Penelope meets Derrick by the carriage, surprised to find that his favorability has risen even though they were apart. Maybe he was just happy not to see her for a few days. Penelope gets into the carriage without another word, but then Derrick climbs in too. Oh no, they're riding together! That never happened in the game before. Seeing her surprise, Derrick tells her to ride in a different carriage if she would prefer. Sensing another opportunity, Penelope tells him that she is happy to be riding together. That little comment earns her another 1%, but her victory is brief, since they spend the rest of the journey in uncomfortable silence. When they arrive at the palace, Derrick helps her down from the carriage, acting like a true gentleman for once. They enter together, and while they are announced to the other guests, Derrick goes back to normal and starts threatening her again. He warns her that if she does anything rash, she'll get a much harsher punishment than the last time. I think we all know what that means. Her brother soon disappears among the other guests, chatting happily with the nobles while Penelope is ignored in the corner. I guess her terrible reputation has spread beyond the Eckart family. But that hardly matters, since she's only there to meet the crown prince and, die. Still, that doesn't make it any easier to bear all the horrible things people keep whispering about her. Eventually, the queen and the second prince make their arrival. To the surprise of the guests, the second prince sits in the emperor's throne, which traditionally belongs to the crown prince. He formally introduces himself and orders the banquet to commence. Then suddenly, the door slams open and Kalisto appears. As if that entrance wasn't dramatic enough, his boots are also covered in blood and he's dragging a person down the aisle. Wait, this is one of the male leads? He's a straight-up psychopath! Kalisto stops before the thrones and wishes his brother a happy birthday in the most ominous way possible. He throws the man to the floor while his brother and mother freak out. The queen is furious, calling him a crown prince by name alone and reminding him that he wasn't even invited to this banquet. And honestly, I can see why. Kalisto plays it cool, claiming he dropped all his urgent political duties to be here. The man he just flung to the ground was the servant who refused to give him an invitation letter. He warns his brother to pick servants more carefully in future and stabs the man beneath him without even flinching. Okay, seriously, who in their right minds would call this boyfriend material? Even Penelope is shocked. This scene wasn't in the original game. Has the plot changed because of her actions? Or are some secrets being revealed now that she's part of it? She starts to wonder if the two princes have such a rift because they had different mothers. Then a system notification pops up, offering her the chance to start to interact with the crown prince in the garden maze. Well, at least she doesn't need to worry about provoking him. This guy might take her head clean off without a word. Swallowing her doubts, Penelope is teleported to the maze, prepared to face her death. The prince isn't nearby, so she starts walking, following little orbs of light guiding her toward her next interaction. She ends up in a clearing with a fountain, but there's no one there. At least, that's how it seems, until a sword appears against her neck. Enter Kalisto for his second dramatic entrance of the evening. He recognizes her at once, calling her the mad dog of the Eckart family. So much for royal manners. He thinks she followed her after that scene at the banquet and threatens to kill her immediately. He's not bluffing either. His sword is pressed so close that it's tearing the fabric of her dress. Penelope starts to panic. This is what she wanted, but where's the reset button? It should have appeared by now. She's too scared to speak, so the prince prepares to kill her, promising to deliver any last words to her family. He raises his sword above her, but Penelope cries out suddenly. She agrees to explain herself as the crown prince smiles, returning his blade to her neck. But now she's stuck. If there really is no reset button, then she could die for real. What the heck can she say to get out of this mess? Kalisto seems to enjoy her panic. He says he's excited to hear what she has to say and pricks her neck as a warning. Penelope is lost for words, so she stammers a romantic confession. Oh, I can't look. How is this maniac going to take this? Penelope says she thought he might be feeling down after the incident in the banquet hall, so she came out in the hopes of reassuring him. It sounds pathetic, even she knows that, but for some reason Kalisto finds it amusing. The shame of the Eckart family and the illegitimate heir to the empire do make an unexpected pairing after all. He suddenly leans in, his blade still very much pressed against her neck, and asks how she could have fallen for him when they've never really spoken. Penelope says it was love at first sight, but he continues to interrogate her. She can't come up with anything particularly lovable about him other than his looks, which doesn't impress the prince. Even though she can't come up with anything original, he decides to let her go on one condition. The next time they meet, he wants a detailed explanation as to why she fell in love with him. Oh gosh, there's going to be a next time? She's done for. After that harrowing brush with death, Penelope is awarded with a mere 2%. Not wanting to risk another second with this bloodthirsty psycho, she runs away. At least she learned something useful. There is no reset button. If it was an option, it definitely would have come up, considering how close she was to death. That means she's back to square one. Now there's no choice but to get one of the endings with the male leads, and there's no room for error. One wrong move could mean her death in both this world and the real world. She's so caught up in her thoughts that she doesn't take notice to the man standing in her path and crashes into him. She mumbles an apology, but the stranger grabs her hand. Penelope starts wriggling, demanding the stranger let go. She's still frightened from her brush with Kalisto and screams that she doesn't want to die. But the man she ran into is not the crown prince, nor does he want to kill her. He's another one of the male leads, the talented wizard Vinter. Vinter assures her he has no intention of harming her and tries to calm her down. Once Penelope returns to her senses, she apologizes for acting so odd in front of a stranger and turns to leave. Vinter stops her, insisting she see a doctor. Penelope just wants to go back to the banquet hall and head home, so Vinter offers her a handkerchief for the bleeding. She thanks him, but he only hopes that when they meet again, her eyes won't look so sad. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. This is how a real male lead should act, not throwing swords around and threatening to kill the protagonist. By some small miracle, his favorability has also jumped to an incredible 9%. She could be on to a winner with this one. Back in the banquet hall, Penelope finds her brother and tells him she's not feeling well and wants to go home. She suddenly faints, which isn't surprising considering how much blood she lost. While she's unconscious, she revisits one of the memories from her old life, when she was beaten up at school. She came home with bruises and wounds all over her body, but when her brothers asked what happened, she yelled at them. They never cared before, why should they care now? In the end, her brother got revenge on her attackers, but still found a way to make it seem like her fault. When Penelope wakes up, she sees her brother Reynolds standing over her bed. Memories of her past life still fresh in her mind, she tells him she hates him. And she really rubs it in, like a concerning amount. But she was barely conscious. Maybe he'll let it go? 4 days later, she's almost back to full strength. Emily reports that her family was very worried. Derrick came running home with Penelope in his arms, and then the Duke summoned every doctor in the capital. Reynolds nearly stormed the Imperial Palace. Penelope doesn't quite believe her, but even Emily seems relieved that she has survived the ordeal. Although, I'm still not sure she has the right to be concerned after everything she did. She rushes off to report her recovery to the Duke, who later summons her to his office. Penelope is expecting bad news. She made another commotion at the palace, and it can't be a good sign that he's forcing her out of bed to come and see him. At least the butler is being more respectful these days. Actually, everyone is. It seems like the staff have fixed their attitude problems, probably under Reynolds' orders. As soon as the doors to the Duke's office are opened, Penelope drops to her knees and delivers another dramatic performance, requesting a punishment for her wrongdoings. Luckily, the Duke stops her and tells her to stand. Eckarts shouldn't kneel to anyone, he says, not even to a royal. Well, that's a relief. It seems like he's more angry for her than at her. It turns out he didn't summon Penelope to blame her. He wanted to hear her side of the story. Nervously, she begins to tell the story of how she went to the garden and ran into the crown prince, who was clearly in a bad mood. The Duke is outraged. What kind of crazy person would raise their sword at a lady just because he was in a bad mood? Even though that's pretty much exactly what happened, Penelope says it was her fault for running into him. To her surprise, the Duke is actually proud of her. Because of this interaction, the Eckart family have something to leverage against the crown prince. Of course, he has no concern about the safety of his daughter. He is just thinking of the political advantage she has brought him. Ugh, I hate this guy. But ultimately, it is an advantage. The nobility of the empire had been split between the crown prince and the second prince. Since the empress passed away, Kalisto has had less and less support, and his volatile personality makes him a less appealing option than his brother. Now, with some of the backstory in place, Penelope understands a little more why the prince caused such a scene at the banquet. That wasn't just a servant, that was an assassin who had been sent to kill him off while the rest of the nobility celebrated the second prince. The Eckart family have struggled to remain neutral, but this incident will help if the Crown Prince ever tries to pressure them. For that, the Duke is willing to give her a reward. Penelope decides to think on it and decides that she wants it at a later time. When she leaves the office, her favorability with the Duke has gone up by 5%. Back in her chamber, Emily presents her with the handkerchief that Vinter gave her at the palace. Even though Derrick told her to throw it away, Emily had the good sense to wash and return it to her. Her mistress thanks her for being so considerate. She then asks her maid to call the jewelers, and Emily assumes she wants new accessories for the upcoming founding festival. Actually, Penelope had completely forgotten about the festival. That will be the place where she meets the final romantic interest, Eklies. She's never met him before as Penelope since she was too busy dying on hard mode, but he's still the easiest target, so the first meeting will be an important chance to establish a connection. The next morning, she wanders the estate searching for a hole in the wall that will let her get to the festival. She sends Emily back to the house for snacks, but when Penelope looks up, it's Derrick, not her maid, who has returned. Oh, and his favorability has increased by 2%. He really does like her more when she's out of sight. She assumes he came to talk to her about the incident back at the palace, so Penelope does her usual trick and starts with an apology. Derrick interrupts her just like their father did. That wasn't why he came to see her. He actually wanted to give her a scarf to cover up the bandages around her neck. And it's kind of pretty. Did he pick it out himself? Penelope thanks him for the scarf and calls him young master again. That must be his trigger word because as soon as she said it, his favorability jumps up to 10%. A few days later, Penelope does actually find that hole in the wall she was looking for. Her family would probably let her go to the festival if she asked, but they definitely make her take a guard along. And then she wouldn't be able to slip away to save Eklies from the slave auction he's due to be sold at. As she's wrestling around in the bushes, someone catches her. Penelope turns, flustered, to find Reynold watching her, all hot and sweaty from training. Oh, and his favorability has increased too. Penelope says that she was only taking a walk, but Reynold smirks, pointing out that she has conveniently ended up near the hole in the wall. She turns the question on him, asking what he's doing here too. Obviously he was training, as he makes painfully apparent by lifting up his shirt and flashing her a glimpse of his abs. Real subtle, Reynold. She tries to walk away, but her brother gives her a warning. The reason they extended the walls in the first place was because she tried to climb them one time and broke both her legs. Ouch! He advises her to get permission and leave through the gate instead of trying anything dangerous. Once he leaves, the system offers her the chance to do the festival with Reynold, promising a reward of 3% more favorability. Penelope picks no. That's not enough of a reward. And besides, she won't be able to buy Eklies if she's with Reynold. When the first night of the festival arrives, she's prepared a rope to climb from her room, a disguise, and a blank check from her father to pay the slave auction fees. She's feeling optimistic about her chances until she runs out of rope just above the first floor. It's too high to jump, and her sweaty hands are starting to slip. Penelope is clinging on for dear life when Reynold appears at the window below her. He thinks she's running away from home, but Penelope insists she's just going for a walk. Yeah, like he's gonna believe that while you're dangling from your windowsill. Suddenly, the rope shifts and Reynold jumps into action. He tells her to let go, promising to catch her. Uh-oh, is this another game over waiting to happen? She doesn't have any choice but to trust him, so Penelope lets go, praying she can trust him. Thankfully, she lands safe and sound in Reynold's arms. He's even got a smirk waiting for her. A little flustered, Penelope asks him to put her down. She tries to invent another excuse for her late-night escape attempt, but Reynold won't hear it, and even threatens to tell the Duke if she doesn't come clean. Reluctantly, she admits that she was heading to the festival, but doesn't give any more information than that. He starts up a speech about how dangerous it is to go out at night without a guard, but she cuts him off, telling him to keep to himself. Whatever happens will be on her head. Literally, so he doesn't have to worry. As you probably expected, Reynold isn't the type to let her walk away. He wants to come with her, and even promises not to tell their father so long as she agrees. Penelope is a little confused. Why is he being so nice when he doesn't even like her? Insulted, Reynold argues back, saying that she's the one who couldn't stop saying how much she hates him. Oh, is he talking about when she was unconscious? I knew that would stick with him. Anyway, Penelope doesn't have much of a choice but to accept his offer, so they head to the hole in the wall together, where suddenly, Derrick appears from out of nowhere. Reynold caves and immediately reveals their plan. Then Derrick insists on coming with them. Apparently, the rule is for a noble to have at least 2 guards, though I think he just wants to be included. At least this way she'll get double points. But once they're at the festival, another problem arises. Penelope has no idea where the slave auction is being held, and she can hardly concentrate with Reynolds dragging her to every stall, offering to buy her jewelry. He picks out a pretty bracelet with a gem that matches her hair, but Penelope asks for a mask instead. A plain one without any decorations. Reynolds is deeply suspicious. It's not like his sister to turn down fancy jewelry. But he buys the mask anyway, just in time for the start of the parade. The quickly forming crowd threatens to separate the siblings, so Penelope clings to Derrick for support. But as the crowd thickens, they are torn apart. At least for now, she's on her own. She's still holding one of Derrick's cufflinks. The system presents her with the Eklies quest, allowing her to teleport to the slave auction house. Clearly, the mask was a good idea. Everyone attending the auction has covered their faces. Penelope joins the queue, but when she gets to the front, the bouncer demands an invitation. He's about to move her along when she presents a cufflink from Derrick's jacket, bearing the rose symbol of the Eckart house. As soon as he realizes who she is, the bouncer ushers her inside. Although, it's probably not a good sign that slavers have so much respect for her family. Penelope is led down a winding staircase which ends in a huge arena, complete with a ringmaster to MC the event. He even calls the slaves products. It's like entertainment for these people. The slaves are brought on stage, battered, bruised, and clothed in rags. Members of the audience name their price, outbidding one another for the chance to own these poor souls. Eklies is brought out at the very end. Since he came from Delmene, a country defeated by the Empire, he is treated as an exotic rarity. His back is covered in scars, and he looks lifeless, but still, he holds a sword as a sign of his value. His talents in swordsmanship make him a valuable asset. To prove his worth, the ringleader releases a pack of wolves into the arena, forcing him to fight for his life. As if that wasn't cruel enough, the sword they gave him is wooden. He's wearing rags, covered in scars, and his hands and feet are shackled. I know he's supposed to be talented, but isn't this a bit much? Penelope is a little worried he might die before she gets a chance to save him, but Eklies proves her wrong with his first strike, sending his sword straight through the chest of the first wolf. He is agile too, able to dodge every attack thrown his way and use minimal movements to his advantage. When the last wolf launches at him, Eklies thrusts his sword so hard it goes right through the beast. It seems Penelope didn't have to worry after all. The audience cheer for Eklies as if he were some kind of celebrity and not a half-starved warrior on the brink of exhaustion. So it's no surprise that he turns his sword on the moderators next. Before he can land a hit, his collar shocks him out of consciousness and he falls to the floor. Wow, this is one heck of a backstory. How exactly is this guy going to end up being romance material? The ringleader starts the bidding at $500,000, an insane price that soon jumps to $1 million, then $2 million, then $4 million. Do the Eckarts even have that kind of money? The bid goes as high as $10 million before the ringleader calls for final numbers. Within the crowd, Penelope raises her hand and offers a whopping 100 million gold. I don't think her father's going to be happy about that. But Penelope doesn't have a choice. She's staking her life on Eklies and the hope that she can reach a successful ending with him. She's basically bidding for his freedom and hers as well. Of course, no one can match 100 million gold, so Penelope wins. She is led backstage to where Eklies is being whipped. Swallowing her disgust, Penelope hands over the bank check signed by the Duke and receives a ruby red ring in return. It controls the collar on Eklies' neck, which is imbued with paralysis magic to subdue him at a moment's notice. As if this wasn't all messed up enough, the collar is powerful enough to kill him, so the ringleader asks her to only use it when necessary. He warns her that Eklies is dangerous, so she should keep it on her at all times. And as if on cue, he looks up from his cell. Somehow, he manages to get the guy whipping him in a headlock between his knees. Anyone else starting to think this guy is more likely to kill her than fall in love with her? Guards storm the cell to try to restrain him, but at this rate, he might be beaten to death. She doesn't want to, but Penelope is forced to use the ring to paralyze him for his own good. While he is kneeling on the ground, Penelope approaches her new purchase and discovers his favorability score is on 0. She lifts his head up and takes off her mask, telling him to take a good look. This is the lady who paid 100 million gold to buy him. And it's not because she has money to throw around. No one except her would be insane enough to spend so much money on one slave. Penelope taunts him, claiming that even if he escaped, there would be nowhere to go. His country is in ruins by now. Then, she grabs his chin hard and warns him to know his place and prove the potential she saw in him. If he doesn't keep calm and obey, then she'll bring him right back to the auction house. Well, I'm not sure how threatening him is going to earn his trust, but for now, obedience is more important. They need to get back quickly before Derrick and Reynolds sound the alarm at home. She orders the ringleader to release his gag and the shackles at his feet. Then she orders one of the guards to take off all his clothes and hand them over. At least now he'll have a shirt on his back. The only problem now is that she has no idea where they are. Before they can start moving, Penelope is confronted by the man she outbid at the auction. He is incredibly arrogant and expects her to know him by reputation alone, even though he clearly has no clue who she is. He even has the nerve to ask her to hand Eklies over for a measly 10 million gold. Penelope calls his bluff, refusing to give him up for any less than 990 million gold. He starts complaining that this isn't fair, so she tries to take off her mask and reveal her identity. But suddenly, the arrogant man raises a hand to hit her. In an instant, Eklies swoops in and grabs the man, twisting his wrist at an uncomfortable angle. Somehow, he has managed to break free of his handcuffs. He pushes Penelope behind him for protection, and then he lets loose. Blood and fabric flies everywhere as he takes on the whole crowd of men who were standing behind that noble. When Eklies is finished, the street is covered in bodies and blood, and the arrogant elder is staring up at him in horror. It seems like he might be about to finish him off too, but instead, Eklies turns back to his mistress and kneels before her. After taking care of her dirty work, he takes her hand and asks to be praised. Well, that was unexpected. Maybe this will work out after all. Already, his favorability has gone up by 18%. Eventually, she brings him back to the Eckart estate, where Fennel and Emily are horrified to see her return so late, and with a boy. The Duke and the boys were so worried that they took a small army to search for her all night. Then, slavers arrived early in the morning looking to get their payment. It's just been one big mess. So much for leaving quietly. Emily tries to hurry her to bed, but the butler wants to know about her uninvited guest first. Penelope doesn't explain. She just tells them his name and announces that he will be staying at the Duke's house for the time being. Fennel tries to resist, which is kind of fair. I mean, he's a ragged, smelly stranger who came in from a slave auction. I probably wouldn't want to let him in either, not without a few questions. But Penelope is getting very good at intimidating her staff, and soon the butler caves, promising to prepare Eklies an adequate room. But she can't rest just yet. Now she has her family to face, who are worried sick over her disappearance. The Duke looks furious and summons her to his office at once. Meanwhile, Reynolds has noticed Eklies and decided to pick a fight. Doesn't he always pick a fight? Penelope vouches for him and sends Eklies off to find the butler. She's got bigger problems than Reynolds right now. Problems like her father. She starts with the usual attempt at an apology, though I think we all know that isn't going to cut it this time around. Her father thinks so too, calling them empty words and slamming his hands against the desk. He asks her question after question, trying to figure out what exactly happened last night. When she starts to explain, he can't help but interrupt, telling her she could have just asked for permission to go to the festival. She relays what happened with her brothers and how they ended up getting separated by the crowd. When she mentions the arrogant nobleman, the Duke flies into a rage, demanding to know who dared to threaten his daughter. She conveniently skips over the whole slave auction part, claiming that Eklies just happened to be passing by and helped save her from the nobleman. He was caught by the slave auctioneers after trying to help her, she tells him, so Penelope bought his freedom in return for saving her life. Her father is frustrated, but he seems to have finally calmed down, which means it's time for hothead number 3 to enter, storming into the office and demanding to know where she was. He spent the entire night searching for her. He was worried she'd been kidnapped. Once he's got a hold of himself, he moves to stand beside his father. The conversation moves on to Eklies, and Penelope asks him to accept him as an apprentice knight. Obviously, from what they've seen, they don't think he's capable of even holding a sword, let alone wielding one. So she switches tactics and asks to keep him as her personal bodyguard. And since the family knights kind of hate her anyway, it does seem sensible. So the Duke agrees. For now. She heads back to her room to finally get some rest after the long and weary night and finds a system update waiting for her. Apparently, she failed the date quest with Derrick, but that was bound to happen. And besides, his favorability rose 3%. She must be doing something right. Back in her quarters, Reynolds is still bothering Eklies. He gets even more annoyed when he finds out he's going to become her new personal bodyguard. He keeps pestering her with questions, but Penelope is exhausted. She just wants to go to bed. Reynolds reaches for her, but Eklies steps in the way, challenging her brother. Penelope tries to ease the tension and tells Reynolds that if it weren't for her new bodyguard, she'd be dead in an alleyway right now. So yes, she does need a bodyguard, and yes, it does need to be him. As she turns away, she receives another notification failing her quest with Reynolds. Eklies follows her back to her room, but his mistress stops him, explaining that there are other ways to prove his worth than by following her around like a lost puppy. Firstly, he needs to make the Duke's staff and family accept him, which won't be hard since she believes everyone will see what she did in him. When she says that, his favorability jumps up again. Okay, she definitely made the right choice. This kid is much easier than her brothers. Ever the loyal servant, he promises to work to be accepted by the Eckart household. As Emily is guiding him away to his new room, Penelope gives him a little pat on the head. Kind of weird, but he seems to like it. The next few days pass slowly. Eklies is allowed to stay in the mansion, despite the protestations of Derrick and Reynolds, and Penelope is put back on probation. She spends a lot of time in her room, a welcome break from all the late-night quests and dark alleyways she's been dealing with lately. The jeweler she called before the festival has finally arrived, which means it's time to turn her attention back to Vinter. It can't hurt to pursue 2 targets at once. The jeweler presents her a beautiful pair of cufflinks made from lapis lazuli, but Penelope isn't interested in gems. She asks Emily if there's anyone who knows about information brokers, and as it happens, her roommate used to work in that field. But Emily seems a little sad to miss out on a chance to prove herself, so Penelope gives her the job instead, warning her that this job will decide once and for all if Emily stays or goes. The job is as follows. After her morning chores, Emily must find a private investigator and ask them to find someone matching the description Penelope will give. To pay them, she can offer any of the gems Penelope is about to pick. So long as the investigator is of high quality, she's willing to pay almost anything. Here she goes, splashing her father's money again. I hope she's ready for another scolding. The next day, Penelope gets an invite from the royal palace to attend a banquet for the end of the Founding Day celebrations. A larger one was already held that Penelope wasn't invited to. This one has been planned by the Crown Prince himself. Uh-oh, remember what he said? Better start coming up with reasons to love that psychopath and fast. To make matters worse, the rest of her family haven't been invited. Only Penelope. Immediately, she pretends to faint and announces that she's too sick to attend. Fennel catches on quick and leaves her to rest up. Emily offers to call a doctor, clearly not comprehending the situation. But Penelope agrees, since inviting a physician will help spread the rumors of her health. With any luck, she won't have to attend the banquet, and she might get a few more days laying around in bed. It's the best of both worlds. A few days later, Emily returns from her mission, having successfully uncovered Vinter in his secret identity, the information broker who knows everything about everyone. Of course, she doesn't know it's Vinter, but when she mentions the white rabbit mask, Penelope knows she has succeeded. Staring out at the rain, she is reminded of her childhood when there was no one to hold an umbrella or pick her up after school. As sad as it is, she has no time to reminisce. Just because Reynolds doesn't hate her anymore doesn't mean she's in the clear. One wrong move and this whole operation could end in a very violent death. On a walk through the gardens in the rain, Penelope is intrigued by the sound of swords clashing in the training grounds. It's Eklies practicing furiously even in this downpour. There's something kind of sad about the sight of his scars. Half sympathetic and half curious, Penelope takes a few steps towards him and ends up at the tip of his sword. He's panting, and for a few seconds, he doesn't even realize who he's pointing at. She starts to ask why he's practicing in the rain, but since the blade at her neck is slightly more important, she asks him to drop it first. Eklies suddenly snaps out of his trance, so ashamed that he slams his sword into the dirt, breaking it in two. He drops to his knees and begs for a punishment. Deja vu, anyone? I think we've seen Penelope in this situation more than once. It's kind of weird for her to be on the other end of it, but instead of scolding him, she insists he get out of the rain. She even asks if he's being harassed, since the Duke would surely have ordered the knights not to train in this weather. She touches his cheek, demanding he give her the name of whoever made him do this. But there's no culprit. He's just that motivated. I mean, she did ask him to prove himself, and this is the quickest way to becoming a fully fledged knight and her official bodyguard. Penelope is softer than usual. She says she's proud of him and offers him a reward for his hard work. Maybe a new sword, since he just broke his like a drama queen? Eklies doesn't want anything except to meet his mistress more often. She hasn't come to visit him even once since he arrived, so he thought she'd forgotten him. Something about the look in his eyes makes Penelope suspicious. He's acting almost as well as she is, pretending to be the obedient servant in order to stay alive. Maybe Eklies isn't the safest option. But even if he is pretending, his favorability is continuing to rise, and time is ticking. If she wants to have any chance of staying alive, she needs to keep working with him, like it or not. Penelope sighs and orders him to stop training for today. As she walks away, she starts to panic, realizing just how close she was to death. Looks like it's time to meet back up with Vinter. Maybe he'll be slightly less violent than the others. After seeking out a response from the information guilds, Emily has returned with answers at last. Though they're not exactly the answers her mistress was expecting. Since she gave such a vague description of the person she's searching for, 3 of the 4 guilds asked for more information to complete her request. The 4th guild, the one with the rabbit mask that Vinter is secretly a part of, never responded. Which is kind of a shame, since this whole bid for information was actually just bait for Vinter anyway. Even though her tactic failed, Emily still did a good job, so Penelope offers her all the leftover jewels in her box as a reward. But to her surprise, Emily refuses. She doesn't want jewels. All she wants is the honor of becoming her personal maid. Which is rich, coming from her. I know she's been working hard, but this is the same girl who woke her up with needles every morning and fed her moldy bread. How is Penelope supposed to trust her? Desperate, Emily gets on her knees, promising to prove herself trustworthy if given the chance. And if she fails in any way, then she can show the needles to the Duke and have her punished for life. This comes as a surprise to Penelope. She doesn't remember such a sequence from the game, and she's not a particularly powerful figure, so why does someone like Emily want to stick by her so badly? It's a little suspicious, but one look at her face tells her there's no way she's lying. So Penelope accepts, and Emily runs off with a great big smile on her face. She's still thinking over the encounter when suddenly her windows burst open and a great rush of wind blows into her bedroom. And who was responsible for this dramatic entrance, you ask? Why, a tiny baby bunny, of course! Looks like Vinter did send a reply after all. It's kind of freaky, actually. How did a rabbit get through a window on the 2nd floor? She starts asking it all these questions, feeling kind of stupid for talking to a rabbit, but suddenly, its eyes turn red. It tells her the request has been fulfilled, and then hops away as if nothing happened. What the heck was that? If I was Penelope, I would have jumped out the window by now, but she has the courage to stay put and listen to the rest of the message. The rabbit instructs her to come to the upper circle if she would like a response, and introduce itself as a messenger of the White Rabbit Circle. As if it wasn't obvious already. This kind of thing happened with Yvonne in the game, but she had no idea it would be so creepy in reality. A teleportation invite pops up, so Penelope gathers her things and heads off at once. She knocks at the door, which opens by itself, but walks in to find the office empty. Just as she's about to sit down, the room starts to shake and a secret doorway appears. This is some Harry Potter level magic. Vinter must be seriously talented to have put this whole show in place. Taking a risk, she decides to enter the secret room, slightly worried about angering its owner if he didn't actually intend for her to find it. She walks down a long and spacious hallway, following the voices of what sound like children at the other end. The room she ends up in is like some kind of infinite museum filled with books and artifacts and gems of priceless value. And at one end are a group of small masked kids waving magic wands at some big rock thing. Is this really the White Rabbit Circle? Feels more like a magician's playground to me. They're trying to get through the rock to whatever is inside, which looks to be a rare magician's relic. Penelope doesn't know a lot about magic, but she does know that if the kids keep trying this way, they'll end up destroying it. She steps in front of the rock, asking them to stop. When she asks who they are, the kids accidentally let slip that they're Vinter students, and they're especially surprised that she managed to get in here. She manages to deflect their questions, bringing the conversation back to the relic. Vinter left them with a hammer and stake, but according to the kids, it's not strong enough to get through the magic ice, so they gave up. Penelope shows them the right way instead, using hot water to melt the ice enough to break through and carefully carve out the box. She learned this technique at university studying archaeology, where she was hoping to eventually work on excavation sites. They're about halfway through the ice when a cold voice freezes Penelope in place. Vinter doesn't know who she is at first or how she got inside this place. She's tempted to expose her true identity to gain his trust, but the longer it takes to answer, the lower his favorability drops. Yikes! At this rate, he might use his magic to kill her on the spot. Fortunately, the kids step in at the last possible moment, pretending they brought her in themselves. They point out how well the relic extraction has been going, telling him it's all thanks to her. Vinter seems to calm down after that, but his favorability is stuck at a dangerous 3%. She's gonna have to tread extremely carefully from now on. After apologizing, Penelope is led back out into the office, where Vinter makes a point to triple lock the door and tells her he won't be taking requests today. She'll have to come back another day. Well, that was a fat waste of time. Determined not to waste this opportunity, Penelope explains that she was summoned by a rabbit and waited patiently before entering the secret door. Vinter seems taken aback. Nobles don't usually come running right away, even if they are summoned by a magic bunny straight out of a horror movie. Embarrassed, Penelope tries to leave, but Vinter stops her, genuinely wanting to apologize for the mistake. And would you look at that? His favorability has gone up again! As she's talking with him, it becomes clear that Vinter truly values his trust and relationship with his clients, which is why he's willing to let her walk out unharmed and with her memories intact, despite discovering the deepest secrets of his inner circle. In exchange, he promises to fulfill her request completely free of charge. Wait, isn't he the one she's searching for? What's he gonna do, just take off his mask? That seems highly out of character. The first question Penelope asks is actually about the kids who are descendants of a mage's bloodline and were rescued from an anti-magic group, 'cause apparently those exist. Looks like the lore goes pretty deep considering this is a dating sim. The current Imperial powers are pretty anti-magic themselves, which is why keeping this society and its master a secret is of vital importance. For that reason, Vinter begs her not to tell anyone what she saw here today, for the sake of the kids, if not for him. It reminds Penelope that in the original story, it's thanks to Vinter that Yvonne discovers her true heritage and is able to return to her family and the Duke. But wait, isn't that timing a little suspicious? Yvonne reappears on Penelope's coming-of-age day. Doesn't that mean Vinter was intentionally trying to ruin Penelope? A quick look at the dialogue choices reminds her that although this mage seems kind on the surface, he's not an ally or someone she can trust. Realizing that Vinter won't be the easy catch she was hoping for, she slips him the handkerchief and asks him to pass it on to the owner, making it clear she knows his real identity. She's heading for the door when he suddenly bolts across the room, trapping her between him and the wall. Ooh, spicy! Or is this actually a threat? It's so hard to tell with these guys. According to the game updates, it's a genuine offer. A favor, if you like, whenever she needs it. Yeah, right, as if Penelope would willingly walk back into that magician's lair again. Unfortunately, Penelope runs into more trouble when she finds the Duke's knights all over the streets. Derrick leads the guards, so he might be with them, and if he catches her wandering around at night again, well, let's just say it won't be good. And look who it is, the man himself here in the flesh, just in time to spot her round the corner. There's nothing left to do but run for it, so that's exactly what she does. And she ends up right back inside the White Rabbit circle. Well, this is embarrassing. Looks like it's time to call in that favor already. Better that than face Derrick's wrath, then she would really be dead meat. Vinter agrees to teleport her right in front of the Eckart estate. As she's heading inside, Vinter offers to send a response from the man who owns the handkerchief, should he give one. But Penelope refuses, clearly not wanting to be involved with him any longer. It might seem cold, but it's her best bet at staying alive. If this is the man single-handedly responsible for bringing Yvonne into the mix, then technically he's her greatest enemy. Using up her favor was a waste in the end, since Derrick finds her right in front of the hole in the wall. Just as she predicted, he is not happy. The usual attempts at apology and accepting her punishment won't work this time. Without another word, Derrick grabs her and takes her to the Duchy's private trail. Oh, great. Is he going to dispose of her out in the woods? Although he doesn't look particularly murderous, he even slows down when she asks him to. Finally, they reach the top of the mountain where the city lights shine beautifully beneath them. But instead of looking at the festival decorations, Derrick points out the criminals lurking between the alleys. Ah, so this is his angle. He's trying to warn her not to get in trouble or cause issues for the Eckart house. A little firmer now, Penelope tells her brother that she's not a little girl. She's not throwing herself into danger for no reason. She was just trying to return a favor that Derrick himself ordered to be destroyed. For some reason, that makes Derrick's favorability jump up again. He even tells her to use the front door from now on, promising to tell the guards not to stop her if she tries to leave, no matter what time of day it is. As her so-called punishment, he takes the mask Reynolds gave her and gives her a magic bracelet instead. It's been enchanted with defense and camouflage spells, so it might actually come in handy next time she's sneaking around. It's almost like he wants her to keep going out and getting in trouble. Penelope makes a cold comment about how he used to steal jewelry from her as a child. It's funny how the tables have turned. These days, he's giving her the gifts. Derrick doesn't seem to take that very well and drops the bracelet on the ground, leaving her behind as he walks back down the mountain. The next day is the last day of the festival, but for once, Penelope has no plans. She takes note of how her relationships have improved so far and tries to figure out who might be the safest route for her to pursue next. She's just come to the conclusion that her best bet is still Eklies, when the butler, Fangirl, arrives. She's been summoned to lunch with her father and brothers. Seems like the Duke has something to say. As soon as she walks in, Reynolds scolds her for being late. Off to a good start already. The dishes on the table are luxurious, to say the least, but the bigger problem is the etiquette. Penelope is used to taking her meals alone in her room, so she has no idea which cutlery to use for what or how to hold herself. Doesn't matter much anyway, since the staff have clearly messed with her food again. Not only did they make the food taste strange, but they also gave her toy cutlery that can barely get a hold of anything. At least when Emily serves her, she gets to eat well. Once they've finished eating, the Duke reminds them about the upcoming hunting competition. This year's competition is especially important since the newly conquered territories will bring their own animals to be hunted as a symbol of them joining the Empire. The Eckart family didn't take part in the recent battle, so they could do with a little status boost. The Duke wants his family to be involved, but Penelope was previously banned from participating. It turns out last time she asked for a crossbow and threatened to kill another noble lady before being caught and dragged out like an animal by the royal guard. Yeesh, you've got to give it to her. Penelope certainly knows how to put on a show. This time, of course, she promises to be well-behaved and show up for House Eckart. A few minutes later, dessert is wheeled in by Donna, the woman who controls the kitchen and who is most likely responsible for all of Penelope's rotten meals. Even her dessert looks miserable. Deciding to take a stand, she deliberately drops her spoon and makes Donna pick it up. Twice. Tossing the rest of her cutlery on the floor in a dramatic show, she stands up and announces her departure. Her family are shocked, wondering what on earth is the matter this time. That's when she tells them that her cutlery was messed with and her stomach hurts because of the quality of the food. Treading a careful line between polite and self-respecting, she bids them farewell, heading to her room to have a decent meal prepared by Emily. After her display of frustration, she starts to worry that she might have lost some favorability points. But at least the truth is out there now. Emily later comes in with a sandwich and a lovely hot meal, which was freshly made for her at the Duke's command. So she didn't make them mad after all. Still frustrated, she refuses the food. All of this is a little close to home, making her remember how she suffered in her past life. Swallowing rotten food is easier than swallowing anger, I guess. She heads outside for a walk and catches Fangirl on the way out, who encourages her to go and watch the fireworks. He also announces that the attic has been cleaned up and open for entry. The Duke did so especially for her because she used to like climbing up there when she was little. He also fired Donna, the kitchen maid, and didn't give her a single cent of severance pay. Wow, maybe sometimes it's worth causing a fuss. Penelope still can't find it in her heart to be grateful. A few gestures now don't make up for a lifetime of struggle. But Fangirl encourages her to cut her family some slack. He even takes responsibility himself, apologizing for not giving her the same support and attention he gave her brothers. It's a touching sentiment, one that the real Penelope would have truly appreciated. But this Penelope is hardened and can't forgive that quickly. Even so, she asks Fangirl to take her to the attic so that she can at least appreciate her father's gesture. But she wasn't expecting it to be quite so cozy. Fangirl is delighted to see her so comfortable and offers to bring some snacks and let her stay until the evening. Of course, it wouldn't be a game if she could actually just relax for once. Reynolds soon finds her and immediately asks why she bothered to come to the third floor since she's never been allowed up there before. He takes a seat on the sofa and jokes that she'll be able to see the training area from the window. All the other knights and guards were given a holiday, but Eklies will still be there. The reason he's been training like crazy is actually because of Reynolds, who ordered him to swing his sword until he dropped. Ugh, that's just like him. Only he would do something so mean. Penelope gets up at once to go see him, but her brother catches her wrist. He accuses her of going back to her old ways, using the firework display as a chance to wish that the real Yvonne would never return, and she could take her place forever. Apparently, Penelope actually did that in the past, since the last day of the festival was the day the original protagonist actually disappeared. Of course, our girl didn't know that, but she can hardly use that as an excuse now. Instead, she apologizes. She was young back then, but things are different now. Reynolds tries to make her explain herself, but she doesn't want to make him mad. She tries to back off, but he flies into a rage, demanding to know how she convinced the Duke to take her in, how she managed to twist him around her finger. She knows him well enough by now to stay quiet and apologize once again. But he keeps going, being crueler and crueler to her, and saying all the wrong things that remind her of her horrible brothers in her past life. Eventually, she can't take it and snaps back, telling him she could act like his long-lost sister if he was actually nice to her for once. Oh dear, Reynolds really doesn't like it when she talks about Yvonne. Just like that, his favorability points drop 2%. But she doesn't know how to stop. It's all coming out now. All the rage and the pain she felt as a child. She just keeps yelling at him about everything she's endured. He drops another 2%, but she doesn't stop there. She tells him honestly about the horrors she suffered when she was a child, after her mother died and she had to scavenge from the garbage to feed herself. Before the Duke came and brought her into his home, her life was literally hell. That's why she wished for Yvonne not to return. Not because she's a horrible villain, but because she was a scared little girl who didn't want to go back to those times. Can you really blame her? Even Reynolds doesn't have a comeback for that. Feeling awful, his favorability increases and he apologizes. He didn't realize how rough she had it. But how could he when he never even tried to get to know her? Finally, the truth dawns on her brother and his points jump once again. Serves him right for being such a meanie this whole time. Leaving him with one last scathing remark, she heads back to the safety of her quarters. Of course, she doesn't actually know what Penelope's life was like before the Duke was involved, but it was probably just as horrible as she described. The point is, Reynolds never tried to ask. He just thought of her as some manipulative little girl who didn't deserve her position. She sure proved him wrong. The next morning, the young lady wakes up to a piping hot meal personally prepared by the head chef. She asks Emily to call the butler once she's done eating. She may have made some progress with Reynolds last night, but there's always more work to do. The next morning, Penelope tells Fennel she enjoyed the attic, and he says he's pleased. The Duke has allowed her to have access whenever she wants to go, and Derrick has also asked her to join him for lunch whenever she pleases. She ignores that, clearly not ready to do more favors than she needs to. She asks Fennel about Eklies and how he's adjusting to life here and who's been teaching him swordplay. But he hasn't been living the comfortable life she was hoping for. Since Penelope insisted she wanted him as an escort, Reynolds put him down as an apprentice in name, but the truth is everyone is still treating him as a slave. He's certainly not been getting lessons or anything like that. If she wants to truly free him, she'll have to buy him a new identity, but it won't be easy. He's from a country that has recently been subjugated by the Empire, so of course everyone sees him as a second-class citizen. And if at this point you're wondering how he escaped slavery in the original name, it was by stopping Penelope and protecting Yvonne. So yeah, this is starting to look like a pretty serious problem. She really thought she'd solve his issues just by bringing him here, but it turns out that wasn't even half the job. Other apprentice knights from well-known families have been complaining about sharing quarters with him, so it seems like his status as a slave isn't going to be easy to change. Determined, Penelope gets to work at once. She gets dressed up to the nines, making herself as pretty as possible, and heads straight to the training grounds. Just as she predicted, Eklies is on his own, training apart from the others but twice as fiercely. He's working so hard that he breaks his sword in two and gets a kick from the knights as his reward. Which is a stupid reason for punishment. Who cares about a wooden sword? Penelope is shocked to see the kind of abuse he's been getting every day, and that's not all. They don't care one bit that he belongs to Penelope. These soldiers are clearly on Yvonne's side and can't wait for her return so that both she and her slave are kicked out of the mansion. Despite the fact that she's hardly visited him, Eklies still defends his mistress and silently accepts the beating he's about to receive. This is actually really sad. And to think he's been suffering this for weeks already. Just as they're starting to kick, Penelope shows up, giving the knights the fright of their lives. Eklies' favorability rises at once, just because she showed up. Maybe she should have been paying more attention. She turns to the green-haired knight, Mark Albert from the 3rd Division, the one who was bullying poor Eklies. Once they realize she heard the whole thing, Mark realizes he's done for. A more superior knight tries to step in and handle the situation, but Penelope wants to send a message. With one word, she orders Eklies to kill Mark. He doesn't hesitate, leaping to wrap his hand around his neck at once. The knights beg her to step out of it, promising to accept whatever punishment is necessary, and eventually, she orders him to stop. Kind of impressive to see how loyal he is even when he's angry. Penelope loses some reputation points with the mansion staff as a result, but honestly, who cares? They clearly don't respect her anyway, and besides, they're not the ones she's trying to win over. Half the duchy still have their jaws on the floor when she summons Eklies to accompany her on a little trip. As they're leaving, she's given a blank check from the Duke, encouraging her to go out and enjoy herself. Well, looks like someone is trying to get in her good books. I guess he doesn't realize the mess she just made at the training grounds. At her signal, Eklies drops to one knee, offering his literal legs as a stepping stool to climb into the carriage. If this is what he looks like at 27%, I wonder what he'd do at 100. While riding the carriage, he asks why she never came to visit, since she promised she would. The truth is, she's had a heck of a lot else to deal with since then, but she says it's because he wasn't being honest about how he was treated. Instead, she is going to give him a different reward today. To make up for her mess at the grounds, she takes him to buy a load more training swords. Now no one will have another excuse to beat him so badly. She then buys him a new uniform, since that ragged old shirt was starting to look a little gross. She wants to buy him a real sword too, but for now, Eklies says this is enough. Even if she gave him a real sword, he doesn't think he'd be given permission to use it, so what's the point? He knows the truth. There's almost no chance for him to become an official knight given his status as a foreign slave. Does anyone else feel bad for the kid? I know he almost killed a man back there, but he looks like a wounded puppy when he's sad. Still, Penelope takes a look at some of the swords on offer and finds a magical necklace that turns into a powerful sword when it's touched with mana. The shop owner noticed that Eklies has incredible energy and is certain he'll be able to use it. The sword itself isn't super flashy, but it's made of a special rare material and can be disguised as a tiny toy when you want to hide it. It's pretty much perfect for Eklies. After the sword shop, they head to a peaceful lake in the countryside. She wants to take him on a walk and ask how she can improve his life at the mansion, but they both know that's not really possible. As long as he's a slave, he'll be treated like a slave. Penelope didn't realize it until today, but the Eklies she owns is very different from the one in the original game, and his opportunities are much fewer. She also knows that as the fake daughter of the Duke, she doesn't have enough power to help him. Not now, anyway. But still, she asks him to keep training and honing his skill so that he stands a better chance of getting noticed by the Duke. It's kinda nice, actually. They're sort of in the same position, just at different levels. Finally, Penelope has someone who can understand what she's going through. She gives him the sword pendant and asks him to infuse it with his mana. Immediately, it grows into a full-sized blade. At least now we know she didn't get scammed. She makes him choose between keeping the sword and accepting a position as her knight, or staying as a slave forever. Immediately, he plants the sword in the ground and takes her hand, pledging his eternal loyalty. Well, that didn't take much convincing. Though the script has changed from the original, where he also said he promised to love Yvonne forever. I guess it would be a little soon for him to confess to Penelope. He is still only at 40%. The next day, Penelope is called to see the Duke. She's been done so much in the last few days, it's honestly hard to guess what she's in trouble for this time. But at least now they're close enough that she can have a cup of tea and doesn't have to start begging for forgiveness right away. Turns out, he's heard about what happened at the training grounds. He gives her the benefit of the doubt and asks for her side of the story. But Penelope owns up and admits it was all true, and she'll accept whatever punishment he deems appropriate. But she does admit that she would do the same again. You might think she's crazy, but she's actually trying to make him mad on purpose. With the hunt just around the corner, she's hoping to be put on probation so that she can avoid the event and stay out of trouble. Surprisingly, the Duke isn't furious. He's not mad at her, he's actually mad at Eklies. He gives her one last chance to tell the story from her side, and with her escort's life on the line, she has no choice but to tell the truth. The one thing those knights left out was how Mark disrespected Penelope as well as her escort. She knew no one would have told him that, or that green-haired douchebag would have been sent packing by now. The Duke is horrified to hear what they were saying about her, but he doesn't understand why she didn't come to her family first. Dude, just because you let her back in the attic does not erase a decade of abuse. When is this guy gonna get that through his head? Penelope also points out that she's not part of the Eckart family, so technically there's no issue with a knight insulting her. Even when he said all those rude things, not a single one of the family knights stuck up for her. Only Eklies. To her surprise, the Duke actually seems worried about Eklies being a threat to her safety. He was clearly a warrior in his own country, plus he's handsome enough to steal her heart and run away with her. That's kind of cute, actually, that he worries about these things. Penelope reassures her father that she's not that stupid and tries once again to get put on probation. But it won't work this time. The Duke wants her to go to the hunt and prove that she's mature to other people her own age. He hands her a crossbow, the same one she used last year to cause such a scene. Seems like a recipe for disaster, don't you think? Fortunately, he's made some adjustments and given her ammunition that can only temporarily knock someone out. So even if she does lose her temper and shoot someone, she can't do any real harm. They also wipe the memory of whoever gets hit, so the family reputation will be safe. The Duke sure knows his daughter all right. In return, she gives him a magical amulet she found at the sword shop. It can be used for defensive spells, teleportation, and even mana protection in case of an emergency. With the hunt coming up, she wants him to have some extra protection. No one would dare touch Duke Eckart, of course, but that doesn't mean they won't try to take advantage of him. The Duke is shocked and a little touched. She's just leaving when he comments on how mature she's become, and she tells him she's always been thankful that he brought her to his house. Her relationship with the Duke improves, and her reputation bumps back up too. She also brought an amulet for Emily too, also with protective powers. Emily is so grateful she starts crying. I guess she's never had a gift from a mistress before. Her reputation improves yet again, and things are starting to look up. Which means it's perfect timing for a certain crown prince to stick his nose back in her business. A few days before the hunt is due to commence, Penelope receives a letter from the palace. Uh-oh, anyone else got a really bad feeling about this? Although honestly, it is kind of overdue. Her first meeting with Kalisto was already months ago. She promised to come up with convincing reasons for her affections, and so he invited her to all kinds of events to give her an opportunity to prove it. But she turned them all down. That's why he personally vouched for her to participate in the upcoming hunt. He'll obviously be looking for her at the hunt, which means she needs to start practicing ASAP. Who knows? Maybe that psycho of a crown prince will lose his temper and try to hunt her instead of the beasts. Thank God her dad was smart enough to get those memory-wiping bullets. As long as there are no witnesses, she could even shoot Kalisto and get away with it. She heads to the training ground, where Reynolds is just finishing up his practice for the day. She tries to ignore him, but he tells her she can go to the attic anytime she wants. Penelope doesn't care about all that and starts walking away again. Finally, the douchebag plucks up the courage to apologize for speaking to her so harshly. Probably the first apology he's ever given in his life, I'd say. She accepts the apology, but points out that this is the first time he's actually said sorry for the way he treats her. She got over his actions before, and she'll get over them now, with or without an apology. Somehow, that makes him even more affectionate towards her, even though she basically just told him she doesn't care for his apologies. What is with this kid? It's like the less she cares, the more he gets obsessed with her. After that, Penelope heads over to the archery range, hoping to get in some practice and avoid the knights as much as possible. Of course, Eklies finds her in seconds and catches her using the crossbow wrong. He corrects her posture, getting very up close and personal, and even holding her hands. Despite the butterflies in her tummy, Penelope manages to shoot directly at the bullseye. She's a natural, or maybe he is. A little later, he explains that using bows is a basic skill back in his homeland of Delmene, so he has some experience. Penelope can use all the help she can get, so she asks him to help her practice again. You know, like he did just now, standing behind her and whispering in her ear. Ooh, even I'm getting chills. His favorability jumps up at the idea, so clearly Eklies is into it too. He's just resumed his position when Derrick suddenly appears, standing directly in her line of fire. Isn't that kind of a dangerous spot to be standing? We wouldn't want to lose that precious 20%. This is unexpected. Derrick looks kind of jealous, and the male leads never interacted in the original like this. Eklies' grip starts to tighten around her wrist. As soon as she tells him, he lets go and explains to her brother that they were only practicing together. It's clear he has a problem with Eklies being her teacher, and even offers to do it himself. Couldn't be more obvious if he tried. He orders Eklies to return to his dorm, and as the commander of the Knights, he has no choice but to obey. Of course, that doesn't stop a loyal escort like Eklies. He only does what his mistress tells him, remember? Now they each have a hand on her now. The tension is rising. Are they gonna have a fight? Sensing danger, Penelope pulls herself out and heads back to her room, ordering them not to follow. So much for crossbow practice. On the first day of the hunting festival, she summons Eklies to her chamber, where she's waiting in a gorgeous blood-red gown. Fitting, don't you think? His favorability goes up just from seeing her, so she takes the opportunity and calls him forward, making him kneel in front of her. She examines him for injuries and asks him not to step out of line while she's away. If she's not here to protect him, things could get tricky, especially now that he's on Derrick's bad side. She can tell that he's disappointed. It's difficult for him to manage his hatred of the Empire and his affection for Penelope, that much is clear. She asks if he would have rather been left in the auction house, a slave for some awful rich man. When he doesn't respond, she offers to give him the ruby ring that controls his color, but he stops her, clutching her hand and apologizing. He promises not to act out against Derrick or the others again, at least until she's back, and Penelope promises to reward him if he behaves himself. After that, she climbs in a carriage and bids the mansion a temporary goodbye, rolling towards the most dangerous event of her adventure so far. Reynolds immediately makes a comment about her dress. He always has something to say, doesn't he? But the Duke defends her and even shows off the amulet she gave him, which he's wearing openly on his blazer. Doesn't that kind of defeat the point of a safety amulet if you show it for everyone to see? Anyway, when he finds out she bought it, Derrick's favorability goes down a little. Yup, he's definitely the jealous type. When they arrive at the palace, there's a long queue of nobles having their carriages searched. As a war hero, Kalisto does, of course, have enemies, and with a lot of different nations participating, they can't take any risks. The evening starts with a social event in the gardens. Penelope is focused on avoiding the Crown Prince, but she doesn't need to be. She has her own enemies to deal with and a terrible reputation to battle. Just to make them nervous, she brings her crossbow out in the middle of the gardens and orders a bottle of wine. Which is such a mood, by the way. She challenges the others to gossip again, already loading her ammunition. Reynolds calls her out for causing a scene again, and the Duke gives her a caution. Even Derrick tells her to toe the line, warning her the punishment for acting out this time would be far worse than a simple grounding. Then the star of the show himself arrives, Kalisto Regulus. He's been this year's host since the Emperor has gone to the south to cure his sickness. While he's making his opening speech, Marquis Alan, the Queen's father, steps up to ask why the Queen and the second prince are absent. The prince has gone down with the Emperor, and the Queen didn't care enough to respond to the invitation. Well, that's what he says anyway. It looks more like he deliberately didn't include them in the event. To Penelope's dismay, he catches her eye and immediately announces he'll be staying the entire competition. As the evening wears on, he starts making his way closer and closer to the Eckart table, causing her to panic. Her brothers stay to keep an eye on her for a while, and then at the worst possible time, they both abandon her. Great, that's just great. What are brothers even for if they can't protect you from douchebags at parties? Predictably, he corners her as soon as she's alone and asks for her response. That 3% is looming over her like a threat. If even she says a single word wrong, this could be the end. Her mind is completely blank. I mean, can you blame her? I'd be too scared to even think. In the end, she gives him the riskiest possible answer, that she's no longer in love with him. Which seems crazy to me. Why would you tell the psychopath that you changed your mind about him? You think he's just going to shrug it off and walk away? Unsurprisingly, the Crown Prince isn't fooled. He thinks she's found someone else and immediately draws his sword, threatening to kill whoever she's been flirting with. She says there's no one else, which disappoints him. Finally, Derrick comes back and gets between them, asking if Penelope did something wrong. Apparently she did. She's lied to him. Oh dear, they've barely been here an hour and already things have gone south. Derrick's favorability immediately goes down. As if that wasn't bad enough, Kalisto is about to tell her brother about her garden confession. Desperate to save what little faith she has with him, she tries to pull the prince away to talk in private. But then one strange and kind of cute enchanted creature starts terrorizing the party, and a group of robed figures try to assassinate the prince. Is it just me, or would anyone else just let them? If I was Penelope, I'd be running for the hills already. But Kalisto isn't so easy to kill. He immediately goes into war mode, launching an attack at the enchanted creature that tears it in half. Strangely, the knights don't seem to be coming to assist them, almost as if this might be a setup. Is that why the queen and second prince aren't here? Once the creature is defeated, the prince turns his attention to the robed assassins, who seem to be some rebels of the goddess Layla, who came in disguise as shamans of a different nation. They must have had inside help to have passed the inspection like this, but he can't exactly interrogate them now. His life is at stake. The rebels hate him with a passion, furious that someone with such a blood-stained past could even be considered for the title of emperor. They're religious too, and tell him to fear the heavens for the sake of his conscience. But as Kalisto points out, their hands aren't clean either. They've been kidnapping children and abusing them for these messed up magical experiments, so who are they to judge? They're one of the cults who hate magicians, which seems kinda weird considering they're using magic to their advantage. The prince doesn't seem one bit scared. If anything, he looks excited at the chance to shed more blood. Remind me why he's one of the romantic leads again? But the enchanted animal he thought he slayed has now morphed into two. For every time he defeats them, more will take their place. And all the guests are trapped in the garden by an invisible force. To her shock, Penelope spots Vinter in the crowd. How did he pass the inspection when he's a magician? He's clearly conflicted. Should he reveal his true identity and save the citizens, or run away and save himself? Thinking of the kids he's protecting, Penelope is about to make the decision for him. But suddenly, one of the animals appears behind her. She's seconds from being swallowed up by that enormous thing when her instincts kick in. She grabs the crossbow and in one smooth motion shoots a bolt, destroying the animal completely. Maybe her special bullets work better on them? A few seconds later, the whole horde is launching at her. Moving faster than she's ever moved in her life, Penelope loads shot after shot until all the enchanted creatures are defeated. And this time, they don't regenerate. Once the danger has passed, the crowd gathers to congratulate her, thanking the once outcast Lady Eckart for saving their lives. Oh, how the tables have turned. Plus, everyone's favorability has jumped about 5%, which keeps her out of danger with the prince. For now. The smoke clears and the details of the attack become clear. It's not clear if they had help from the inside, but one thing's for sure. The rebels planned carefully to maximize their chances of success. As they're being dragged away, Kalisto orders the guards to reveal their faces. To the horror of the nobles, the attackers were no more than children, clearly under some kind of spell, and with magic amplifying devices in their ears to enhance their abilities. That's barbaric! Vinter stops them being taken away, asking the Imperial Guards to entrust the children to him instead. They're clearly magicians and must have been brainwashed to become slaves for the rebels. Vinter has experience healing victims of this kind of crime and can help restore their memories so that they can track down the real culprits. But Kalisto doesn't seem to care about that. Brainwashed or not, he wants them executed and doesn't care one bit about how old they are. It's only when Penelope steps forward to back him up that Kalisto reconsiders. That little comment earns her even more fame points and improves her reputation further among the nobles. Who knew this festival would turn into such a golden public relations opportunity? Once the crowds disperse, Vinter comes to find her. He acts like they've never officially met and thanks her for her bravery and for stepping up to save those kids. She plays it cool. Anyone would have done the same in her position. She was just lucky to have her weapon on her at the time. In a subtle way, she reassures him about staying put, not giving any indication that she knows his secret. As she's walking away, he grabs her wrist and thanks her for the handkerchief, breaking their silent agreement not to mention the Rabbit Society. He starts asking for a way to repay the favor when Reynolds appears, subtle as a bullhorn and feeling territorial. Why does he always walk in at just the wrong moments? It's like he's got a sense for these things. Reynolds starts his usual act about protecting her dignity from scary, evil men, But this time, Penelope doesn't stick around for the theatrics. She walks away, reminding Vinter that she already answered his question once. She won't accept anything in return. Despite rejecting him for what must be the third time now, his favorability continues to rise. Once the barrier has lowered, Emily and the Duke rush to find Penelope, having already heard the news. They were outside the gardens during the attack and were clearly very worried about her. The Duke asks her to stay out of danger in the future, but to her surprise, he's proud. Like, actually proud to call her his daughter. Penelope is so shocked she doesn't know how to respond and decides to call it a night. Reynold follows close behind. He musters up the courage to point out a scratch on her neck. She hardly even noticed it during the commotion. Of course, her brother thinks it's a big deal, so he pulls out some ointment and keeps her still while applying it. It's kind of sweet. He's still being insufferable, but suddenly Penelope remembers how he was the first person to run towards her in the attack. They bicker all the time like true siblings, but not so deep down, he really does care about her. She thanks him sincerely, which gets him all hot and flustered, and he suddenly storms off, back to being a moody teenager again. As usual, the mean tactic works well, and his favorability has risen yet again. I'm starting to think Reynolds is the easiest character in the game, not Eklies. The next morning, the official festivities are due to begin. Penelope is all dressed up in her hunting outfit, determined to participate even though ladies usually just sit on the side and look pretty. Of course, her family wanted her to go and talk to the other girls her age, do a bit of damage control for her image. Plus, if some men take an interest in her, they can offer her any prey they receive and make her queen of the festival. That is technically her mission objective, but it's one heck of a long shot. The other women are all far too focused on wooing men and gaining social points to have bothered dressing appropriately. As usual, Penelope is the only one standing out. The men gather in preparation for the hunt. Her father is right in the front row next to Vinter. It turns out Vinter's father and the Duke were very close friends. Duke Eckart encourages him to start thinking about raising a family, while Vinter smoothly changes the subject to compliment his amulet. Which does the trick all right. Any excuse to brag about his daughter. Funnily enough, Vinter is also wearing the cufflinks Penelope gifted him, though he dodges all questions about where they came from. He only says they were gifted by someone who rejected him at every turn, and doesn't smile warmly like the others. Kind of a weird thing to say about someone who gave you a present. Looking at her over the heads of the other nobles, his favorability jumps a whole 6% just from the eye contact. Reynold and Derrick are showered with affection as soon as they appear. The girls are obsessed with them, falling over each other to give them gifts. Penelope also has one last present to give, another amulet that she bought at the store. But she's not sure who to give it to. Before she can make a choice, the crown prince appears behind her and takes the box straight from her hands. That's that problem solved. Penelope tries to take it back, but she doesn't want to make him mad. That 10% was hard won. Besides, there's not much she can do when Kalisto takes the amulet, throwing off one of his other medals and placing it right by his collar. Penelope has no choice but to give in and begrudgingly admits it suits him. Which is true. Anything would look good with that gorgeous face of his. As soon as it's on, he walks over to show it off in front of the Duke, who seems a little offended that the crown prince got the same gift as him. In fact, the whole family is shocked. Their favorability even goes down a little. While the boys go off to hunt, Penelope joins the tea party she was invited to, hosted by Count Dorothea. Everyone is very polite, which makes a nice change from the rumors she grew up surrounded by. It's a little awkward. She hasn't had much practice at social events like this, but even she can tell that something's a little off. The only one who seems genuinely pleased to meet her is little Miss Aris, who looks a lot younger than the others. While everyone is complimenting her skills with the crossbow, one lady with blue hair sounds a little more sarcastic than impressed. The moment she hears the name Kelly, Penelope remembers this character. This is the girl that our villainess threatened to kill at the last festival, so it's no surprise she's not exactly being friendly. Actually, she won the position of festival queen last year because of all the sympathy she gained. Maybe she should be thanking her instead. She brings up all that bad blood, trying to stir Penelope's emotions and remind people of her true colors. Instead of taking the bait, Penelope thanks her for the compliment. But Kelly isn't finished yet. She even prepared a target for the young Duchess to showcase her skills. The maids set up a big fluffy teddy bear at one end of the table. Kelly is really putting on a show, trying to get her to lose her temper. The problem is that even if she does keep calm and shoot the target, by tomorrow there'll be a whole new set of rumors about the girl who whipped out her crossbow at a tea party. To everyone's shock, Penelope plays into her hands and threatens to shoot the fly buzzing around Kelly's face, exactly like she did last year. Girl, what are you doing? They even station guards nearby, expecting her to make a scene. Penelope acts like a true villain right up until the moment she pulls the trigger, and nothing happens. She didn't even load the crossbow. She plays it off as a joke, laughing at how terrified everyone looks. She's lucky she comes from such a powerful family, otherwise she'd probably be in a lot of trouble right now. All that happens this time is she loses some reputation and fame points, but she didn't need those anyway. Leaving the other ladies behind in shock, she walks over to the small animal zone to practice a little hunting. She finds a small group of rabbits and a few other animals along the way, but the best is a small coyote, a perfect opportunity for a real catch. What she doesn't realize is that she has now wandered outside the safety of the easy zone. If something goes wrong here, she might not be able to get help. Her first shot at the coyote misses, and it runs off. While she's chasing it, a far larger, more terrifying creature emerges from the bushes. A huge bear that has clearly been shot a few times already. Any normal person would probably be sprinting back to safety by now. But when the game turns it into a quest with huge reputation rewards, Penelope takes aim. Her first shot lands, but barely slows it down. She needs to land a headshot if she wants any hope of bringing it down. With 10 seconds left, she starts to panic, realizing this mini-quest might just be the end of her life if she fails. Time stands still when she notices she's out of magic beads. The only thing left to do is fend for her life. So then why won't her legs work? At the last possible second, a voice tells her to duck. She obeys, just in time for the Crown Prince to sink his sword in and save her life. Of all the people to be indebted to, I'm sure Kalisto is going to find a way to make her pay for this. After the danger has passed, he calls her crazy. What kind of noble woman with zero training would try to take down a bear alone in the regular hunting section? He thinks she genuinely wanted to kill the bear herself, so he cuts off the head and gives it to her, allowing her to pretend she killed it herself. I guess this is his way of thanking her for the amulet, even though she technically didn't give that since he basically snatched it from her hands. Penelope may be gutsy, but she's not bold enough to carry a literal bear head around with her. A little creeped out, she starts preparing to head back by herself despite the prince's warning. The last thing Penelope wants right now is to spend any more time with crazy Kalisto. But with the rain becoming more severe, he does have a point. Eventually, he makes the decision for her, covering her with his cloak and offering her a spot on his saddle. She's about to hop up and ride back with him when an arrow flies from out of nowhere, striking the prince directly in the heart. No way! Who would dare hit the Crown Prince? This has to be another assassination attempt. Penelope flies into a panic, but he's not harmed. By some miracle, it landed directly in the amulet she gave him, saving his life. The next second, another arrow comes flying toward them. Someone is definitely out to kill him. And if Penelope gets in the way, well, I don't think the assassins are the type to differentiate. He picks her up like she's a little doll and puts her up on his horse, climbing on a second after. They speed off through the trees, dodging flying daggers. They can just about see a pair of assassins racing not far behind. Despite his brazen attitude, it's clear the prince is nervous. Poor Penelope is terrified. Another quest pops up, offering her the chance to protect him from the assassins. All 20 of them. I don't know why the game thinks she's even capable of that, but it's not a quest she can refuse. She has no choice but to try, so Penelope shifts over his shoulder with a crossbow, using her few remaining bolts to pick them off one by one. You have to give it to her. For the daughter of a duke, she's got pretty good aim. The enemies are everywhere, firing from all directions. Kalisto only just pulls her back in time to avoid a dagger to the head. He takes it himself, but luckily he's wearing lightweight armor, so it didn't penetrate too deeply. Penelope's body moves on its own until there's only 3 left. But now they have another problem. They've come to a dead end. There's no choice but to get down from the horse and take the rest out from the ground. 2 come sprinting out of the woods, going straight for Kalisto and giving her the perfect opportunity to fire. The last one appears a moment later, aiming for her, not the Crown Prince. She lands the shot, but he's already too close, his blade inches from her neck. Time seems to slow as Kalisto appears, wrapping his arms around her with a blade buried in his back. There's nothing for it but to jump. Penelope lands the very last shot as they're falling. The quest was a success, but at what cost? Now they're plummeting through the air together. I know this is bad timing, but does anyone else think this is super romantic? I know Kalisto is a psycho, but if they both survive this, I might be reconsidering him as a romantic lead. The next thing she knows, the young Duchess has woken up beside a fire in a cave. In only her underwear. Okay, I take it back. What the heck did that creepy prince do? To her horror, Kalisto is also in his boxers, looking like a cover from Lumberjack Weekly. Penelope is understandably upset. They landed in a river, so he had to take off their clothes to keep them from freezing to death. But at this point, she kinda wishes he'd left her there to die. If her reputation wasn't bad enough before, it'll be in the ground after this. Despite his awful personality and the danger he put her in, Penelope is worried. The wounds on his back don't look deep, but they'll need treatment soon if he doesn't want to get an infection. Kalisto's affection points must have risen too, as they should. She literally saved his life today, twice if you count the amulet. Now that they're alone in this very intimate setting, the prince brings up the subject of her falling for him once again. Penelope has to tread a very careful line between insisting she doesn't love him, but promising she doesn't hate him. Sounds exhausting if you ask me. Eventually, she gets frustrated and reminds him of their first meeting when he almost tried to kill her. Conveniently, Kalisto has completely forgotten about that incident. She tells him about all the nightmares that followed, how scared she was after that incident. At least he has enough shame to feel bad. He didn't mean to actually kill her. It was kind of a rough time, and he used to whip his sword out whenever he heard so much as a footstep. Even now, he's still insisting on a real reason for her affection, so Penelope comes up with the only good thing she's ever thought about him: his gorgeous hair. When she first saw him, it shone like gold dust beneath the chandelier, and his eyes were like rubies. He can tell there's some truth in there, so at last, he drops the subject. Penelope goes to bed exhausted that night, but pleased that his favorability has gone up a few more points. Funny how a few compliments about his appearance earned her more affection than saving his life did. Of course, after the day she's had, Penelope's sleep is plagued with nightmares. When she wakes up shaking, Kalisto mistakes her fear for cold and pulls her into his lap to warm up. Well, I bet this isn't what she thought she'd be doing when she woke up this morning. Pressed against his bare chest, the prince is quick to reassure her this isn't because he has feelings for her. It's important they maintain their body temperatures after falling in the river. It could be the difference between life and death. Penelope opens up to Kalisto, confessing that the memory of that day in the forest clings to her, making her feel as tiny and helpless as she did before the bear, her mind restless and sleep-elusive. When Kalisto discovers Penelope's nights are haunted by nightmares, he tries to soothe her with a story from his own childhood. He remembers being thrust into a hunting contest at only 9, the ordeal made harsher by its cruel timing on his younger brother's birthday. His stepmother's icy distance lingers in his mind. She forbade him from even greeting his brother. As he watched nobles heap extravagant gifts upon his sibling, Kalisto felt the sharp ache of being less loved. Kalisto ventures alone into the shadowy woods, only to be confronted by a raging bear that sends him running for his life. Out of nowhere, arrows slice through the air. Assassins have joined the hunt. He dodges desperately, tumbling down a hill as chaos explodes around him. When silence finally falls, both the bear and the assassins lie lifeless. Steeling himself, young Kalisto cuts off the bear's head, intent on offering it as a gift to his brother. At the celebration, Kalisto flings the bear's head onto the pile of extravagant gifts, its blood staining the treasures. In that moment, a grim satisfaction flickers within him. Listening, Penelope cannot help but feel a deep pity for all that Kalisto endured so young. Poor Kalisto was traumatized. Afterwards, Kalisto shifts the conversation, playfully teasing Penelope about her bravery in facing the bear alone. Penelope suspects he's not just mocking her, but also his younger self. She thanks him for opening up, but Kalisto remarks on her lack of emotion, finding it odd, and then walks away. Left alone, Penelope realizes she feels calm and no longer shivers. Meanwhile, Penelope's father paces anxiously, frustrated that the guards have yet to find her. Derrick tries to reassure him, promising that he and Reynold are searching everywhere. When Penelope's father suggests that Kalisto might have kidnapped or threatened her, Derrick quickly hushes him, warning that careless words could reach the royal family. Derrick also reports that they discovered a headless bear near the Yellow Banner. its severed head lying far from a body marked with blackened spots. Still, they are certain the Earl could not have killed it, since he only claimed 2 deer as his prey. Hearing this, Penelope's father begins to blame himself for ever giving her the crossbow. Derrick grows curious about what kind of magic the weapon holds that would make Penelope bold enough to hunt a bear. The father explains that the crossbow can erase part of a person's memory before it strikes its target. Derrick snaps that Penelope is unfit to wield such a weapon, reminding her father how they once had to bribe Kellen with their entire diamond mine to keep Penelope out of prison. He warns they cannot risk another loss. Derrick's resentment shows. He only truly cares for his biological sister, never fully accepting Penelope as family. Father interrupts Derrick's harsh words about Penelope, his voice tight with impatience. He insists that, despite the Eckart family suffering losses from bribing Kellen, their enemies are determined to destroy Penelope. Guilt and resolve flicker across his face as he says they have no choice but to protect her. He reminds Derrick, with a note of longing, that Penelope will soon join their family, and gently urges him to let go of thoughts about his sister Yvonne, who has been missing for years. Father, voice low with remorse, confides in Derrick. He expresses his deep regret over losing Yvonne, his eyes clouded with old grief, and admits he once saw Penelope as a mere replacement, a confession heavy in his tone. Yet he reveals that Penelope has gradually found a place in his heart, softening his expression. Father urges Derrick, with vulnerable sincerity, to accept Penelope as his own sister. Derrick attempts to defend his feelings, insisting he cannot bring himself to like Penelope because of the troubling rumors about her past. Yet he falters, recalling her recent odd behavior, how she keeps to herself and puts on a mask of perfect obedience and respect. This only leaves him more bewildered. The tense exchange lingers as uncertainty hangs in the air. I see. Derrick is still trash after all. Moments later, the tension is broken when Reynold bursts in, breathless, to announce that Baron Tulis, the fiancé of the Earl's daughter, has encountered Penelope. Tulis appears dazed, perhaps still reeling from being struck by Penelope's crossbow. Despite his confusion, he keeps murmuring about a hunting goddess with flowing red hair. Meanwhile, Penelope notices Kalisto lying unconscious and cold. She tries shaking him awake, but when that fails, she delivers a sharp slap that finally rouses him. Kalisto groggily asks if Penelope just slapped him, but she quickly denies it, feigning innocence. Gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss. After a while, Kalisto senses a powerful wind swirling deeper within the cave and detects traces of forbidden magic. Only allied magicians near the palace are allowed to use magic, making this discovery all the more suspicious. Kalisto declares he will investigate, but just then, Penelope receives her own mission to uncover the cave's secrets and eagerly volunteers to join him. As they search for the source of the magic, they stumble upon a skeleton clutching 2 scrolls, surrounded by a faint magical array. Penelope examines the remains and notices that half the skeleton is wedged between stones, yet it stands eerily upright after all this time. Kalisto explains that lingering magic is keeping it in place, and guesses the wizard sacrificed himself to activate the array, marking him as someone of great power. Afterward, Kalisto warns Penelope to step back as he prepares to shatter the lingering magic around the skeleton. After the barrier is broken, Kalisto raises his blade, intending to hack at the skeleton's hand to retrieve the scrolls. Penelope notices his intent and steps in between them, insisting on a gentler approach to protect them. Kalisto, though reluctant, lowers his blade and agrees to her plan. Penelope examines the fragile scrolls, and realizing she needs a brush, snips a lock of her own hair. Kalisto stares in disbelief and suggests again that they simply sever the skeleton's hand, but Penelope refuses. Carefully, she sprinkles charcoal ash to absorb moisture and keep the scrolls from tearing as she prepares to retrieve them. Kalisto comments that Penelope acts like an archaeologist, something that noble ladies aren't interested in learning. But Penelope thanks Kalisto since for her, it's a compliment. My gosh, I love this duo! A few minutes later, Penelope carefully retrieves the scrolls. When she hands them to Kalisto, he unrolls one as if it were ordinary, prompting Penelope to scold him. Their bickering halts as they realize the first scroll is a magical map of the forest, and the second reveals Balta, the legendary land of ancient wizards. As Kalisto studies the map of Balta, he tells Penelope that these marks indicate where the suppression of wizards began. Wizards once attempted to seize power, igniting a war that ended with ordinary people victorious. They erased Balta and began shunning all wizards. Kalisto admits he had believed this was a legend, but today is the first time he has seen real evidence. After learning the truth about Balta, Penelope receives her reward for completing the mission, the ability to teleport anywhere she chooses on the map. Though Kalisto is skeptical, he follows her anyway. When Penelope points to the hunting grounds for small animals, they are instantly transported there. Kalisto stares at her in astonishment, realizing for the first time that she understands the ancient language. Suddenly, Kalisto clutches his head and collapses, leaving Penelope in a panic as she notices how pale he has become. She promises to find help and bring him back to the palace for treatment, but Kalisto, through gritted teeth, warns her that if she leaves him, she will regret it when he wakes up. Spotting some guards nearby, Penelope dashes toward them for help. To her shock, they seize her before she can explain, leaving her frustrated and bewildered. She struggles to understand their reaction as tension mounts. This is getting on my nerves! Meanwhile, Ellen receives word that Penelope has wandered back alone to the edge of the forest, only to be seized on the spot. The butler then reports that Kalisto has been discovered unconscious and rushed to the palace for urgent care. Upon hearing this, Ellen is startled, recalling Gloria's furious account of the assassins' deaths, most struck down by crossbow bolts. A sudden realization hits. Penelope may have aided Kalisto. Feeling urgency and cunning, Ellen immediately plans to shift the blame onto Penelope, knowing Kalisto is still weak and unconscious. Later, Ellen visits Tulis, who lies unconscious. Gloria shifts from anxiety to resentment towards Penelope, not wanting to be associated with a disgraced fiancé. Sensing the rising tension, Ellen quickly reassures them that Penelope has already been captured and is under interrogation. Ellen expresses confidence that Penelope's reputation as the Eckart family's wild card will make it easy to blame her, promising Kellen that everything will be resolved before Kalisto wakes. In the northern tower of the palace, Penelope sits on her bed, eyeing the murder weapon she managed to hide. She nervously mutters to herself, relieved that the guards never searched her. The thought of Derrick discovering her predicament and the chaos she caused unsettles her, blending guilt with worry. However, when Derrick finally appears at her cell, his calmness surprises Penelope. She almost snaps at him, bracing for anger that never comes. Derrick asks if she is hurt, and for the first time, Penelope is swept up in a surge of emotion. After surviving brushes with death and accusations of murder, no one has ever bothered to ask about her well-being until this moment. Penelope's defenses soften in Derrick's presence. She inquires about their father and Reynolds, her voice tinged with regret as she apologizes for making things worse. Memories rush in of the Eckarts once shielding her, the imposter, before the true lady returns. Despite their protection, everything unraveled into tragedy. Now, Penelope weighs whether to entrust Derrick with the evidence that could finally bring justice. Penelope tries to explain to Derrick that she has been ensnared in a trap and holds the key to unraveling it, but Derrick cuts her off, launching into a barrage of accusations, calling her unstable, claiming she threatened nobles with her crossbow, struck Tulis and other competitors at the hunt, and even attempted to kill Kalisto. Man, I guess all kinds of big brothers suck. Just like my big brother. They're all trash and will never have faith in you. Hearing his words, Penelope realizes she was mistaken to believe Derrick truly cared. She decides to keep the evidence hidden, and with icy composure, scoffs at their accusations. How could anyone believe she killed a massive bear or that she would gain anything from harming Kalisto? Derrick, you bastard! Suddenly, Penelope recalls the shock on Kalisto's face when she cut her hair with the blade, the same weapon that stabbed him, the one he knows is laced with poison. With a cold edge, she dismisses Derrick, insisting she has no idea who is behind these schemes and telling him to leave. Penelope turns away from Derrick after telling him to leave. As his footsteps fade, a pang of disappointment stirs within her. She had hoped, perhaps foolishly, that he might finally care for her, but she realizes it was only wishful thinking. The next day, the royal palace's conference hall buzzes with officials gathering to deliberate Penelope's fate. As she enters, her eyes catch a butterfly mark, the same symbol found on the weapon. It reassures her that events are still unfolding as the main script intended. Afterwards, the trial begins, which is presided over by the Attorney General. The first witness is the Count, who accuses Penelope of attacking them since Penelope wants to claim the dead bear. Thus, even if they try to calm Penelope, she still doesn't, and proceeds to hit them with a crossbow, which is the reason why Tulis is suffering and severely injured. Ellen erupts, accusing Penelope of madness. Glancing at her side, Penelope notices the butterfly mark on Ellen, the very same as on the weapon. In that instant, she knows who truly owns it. Derrick quickly interrupts, challenging the witness's credibility. He points out that Penelope's bolts are designed for small game and are enchanted with a stun spell that erases memory. Yet the witness recalls every detail, casting doubt on their story. Derrick's actions remain puzzling. Can he just make up his mind? Gabio quickly rejects Derrick's accusation, but Derrick insists that the wizard who enchanted the bow is present and can testify. Gabio interrupts, reminding everyone that he was not alone at the time and that other nobles also witnessed Penelope's threats. Derrick, you are making this more confusing! Soon after, Dorothea and Kelly enter the hall, accompanied by Tulis, who still seems unsettled. Kelly recounts to the council how Penelope threatened them, aiming her crossbow and leaving them shaken. Penelope smirks, admitting the incident but clarifying that it took place during Dorothea's party, when she was asked to display her crossbow. She turns to Dorothea, saying she can confirm the story, putting Dorothea in a difficult position. Reluctantly, Dorothea agrees with Penelope, though her loyalty remains with Kelly. Realizing the situation and sensing an unraveling, Ellen asks why Penelope is with the Crown Prince. Penelope smirks and reveals that she and Kalisto had hoped to keep it secret, but now she must confess. They are in a relationship, leaving everyone stunned. Penelope's father attempts to rein in her wild streak, but she stands her ground, announcing with defiant clarity that she and Kalisto ended things at the New Year's party, a night the nobles remember for their fiery quarrels. Meanwhile, Derrick is stunned into silence when he learns of Penelope and Kalisto's relationship, the truth hitting him like a sudden storm. Penelope continues, recounting how she and Kalisto faced assassins after their bear hunt. She swears she only aimed at the beast and their attackers, yet she cannot fathom why Gabio and Tulis were wounded by bolts identical to hers. Ellen interrupts Penelope, questioning why she seems unconcerned about Kalisto's condition, especially since he's been poisoned. Ellen points out that the guards saw them together just before Kalisto collapsed, suggesting Penelope could be responsible for the poisoning. Penelope calmly presents her evidence to the Attorney General, explaining that the dagger used to poison Kalisto bears the same unique mark as Ellen's family crest. She also points out a distinctive trinket attached to the weapon, one she recognizes because Kelly often boasts about crafting them. This leads Penelope to suspect Tulis as the would-be assassin, earning her another point of favor. This part is so intense! Ellen and Kelly panic at the accusation, scrambling to deny any involvement and demanding that Penelope prove she was truly hunting bears in the forest. Suddenly, Vinter steps forward and declares he can vouch for Penelope, having witnessed her hunting the bear himself. Vinter begins to recount the chaos of the incident, describing how Kalisto leapt forward and sliced off the bear's head, saving Penelope in a heartbeat. Noticing Kalisto and Penelope deep in a serious conversation afterward, Vinter quietly chooses to give them space and slips away. After listening to the witnesses, the Attorney General wastes no time in declaring Ellen, Gabio, Kelly, and Tulis as the true culprits behind the assassination attempt. As the verdict is announced, chaos erupts. Ellen tries to shift all blame onto Tulis, while Kelly pleads desperately for mercy, insisting she had no part in the plot. Watching their frantic denials, I can only think they're getting exactly what they deserve. As Kelly is dragged away by the guards, begging for mercy, Penelope is struck by a memory from her past life, the time she betrayed others and sided with Ellen to climb the ranks. Once, they were the villains. Now, Penelope is determined to be the only villain left, and she will not let anyone bring her down. After the hearing, Penelope thanks Vinter for standing by her, unlike Derrick, who is quick to label her a troublemaker. Vinter simply smiles and says he's only repaying a debt since she once helped him at a masquerade ball. As Penelope and Vinter converse, Derrick steps in, his tone tense and serious, insisting Penelope leave so he can discuss family matters. Vinter looks between them, concern flickering on his face, but Penelope refuses, her voice steady as she declares there is nothing left to say between her and Derrick after their last conversation. Derrick attempts to scold Penelope, but she stands firm, reminding him that he only wants to corner her without listening to her side. He does not even know she holds evidence that could prove her innocence. Penelope refuses to back down. "That's right, Penelope! Preach to him that you reap what you sow!" When Derrick grabs her hand to stop her, Penelope sharply pulls away, anger and hurt flashing in her eyes, leaving him stunned and silent. She walks off, her voice cold as she remarks that they are nothing more than strangers now. When they are alone, Penelope apologizes to Vinter for letting him witness her rudeness. Vinter gently reassures her, saying he understands. With a swift flick of his hand, he performs a magic trick that coaxes a small smile from Penelope. Seeing her brighten, Vinter tells her he would rather see her smile than cry. In the days that follow, the hunting competition carries on without its host. One of the officials rewards Penelope by inviting her to remain at the palace for helping protect Kalisto. She accepts the offer, even though she notices her father and brothers disapprove. Penelope reasons she has already caused the Eckarts enough trouble, so keeping her distance might be best. She cannot help but feel disappointed that they never asked for her side of the story. I wish Kalisto wakes up to cheer and annoy Penelope. 3 days later, as Penelope waits for the awarding ceremony, she wanders into the palace library to pass the time. There, she discovers a book about the sorcerers of ancient Arcana City and decides to lose herself in its pages. During the award ceremony, Reynold calls Penelope over and gently asks if there's truly anything between her and Kalisto. Penelope assures him it is not a romantic affair. Reynold grins, admitting he suspected as much but wanted to hear it from her. He confides that he never believed the rumors swirling around her after the incident, trusting that she would never risk everything so soon after her ban was lifted. Reynold then offers Penelope a soothing ointment for her bruise, reminding her to use it while he stays at the palace. Penelope feels a warm surge of gratitude, touched that Reynold believes in her when so many others doubted. Reynold is so sweet. I wish to have a brother like him. At the palace, Cedric greets Penelope and she quickly asks about Kalisto's condition. Cedric reassures her that Kalisto is stable and on the mend. Later, Penelope stands outside Kalisto's door, taking a moment to steady her nerves before stepping inside. Penelope enters Kalisto's room, and just like the days before, his condition is still stagnant. Absent-mindedly, she tries to wake him, but he shows no signs of waking. Or at least, that's what she thought when all of a sudden a hand grabs her as she turns to leave. To her surprise, Kalisto has woken up. And for someone who just regained consciousness, he looks pretty much in good shape. Minus the pale lips and sweat running down his forehead. Cocky as ever, he smirks and admits that he's been conscious for the past 3 days and that she's come to visit. Unfortunately, he was just too weak to open his eyes and respond. If he were being honest, the poison is affecting him way more than he thought it would. Everything in his body aches, and seeing Penelope about to leave again is hurting him all over again. We're factoring in emotional pain now, huh? Still weak, he tells Penelope to grab a chair and keep him company. Initially, she hesitates, but seeing Kalisto's favorability rise up to a whopping 42%, she decides to indulge him. After all, he did save her life. By his prompting, she catches him up on the events of late, about the assassins, the culprits, and the ongoing investigation. But when she remembers the testimony she made at the trial, her face strains all color. By the way, Your Highness, to save my own skin during the trial, I kind of told everyone we had feelings for each other. Is definitely not something you should spring up on Kalisto. He may be weak, but there's still no telling how he'll react. She sweats nervously, but luckily, she manages to omit her little white lie as she catches him up about the trial. Hearing her story, well, her very selective story, Kalisto can't help but feel proud of Penelope and everything she went through. It's not every day you save the crown prince and get framed for attempted murder. Shockingly, he offers her a generous reward, a crate of gold. Penelope, however, declines and instead asks for something else. She wants him to promise that he won't kill her no matter what he finds out after his recovery. I would have taken the gold, though. Now Kalisto's definitely getting suspicious, yet to Penelope's relief, he still grants her wish. Kalisto may not know everything that went down during the trial, but he can't deny that he finds Penelope amusing. As he slips off to sleep again, his favorability even rises by 3%. Soon, the last day of the hunting competition finally arrives. Now fully recovered, Kalisto graces everyone with his presence and calls for the most anticipated part of the competition to begin, the tallying of scores. It's no surprise that the male protagonists take the lead. In 5th and 4th place are Reynolds and Derrick. Coming in 3rd is Vinter, and unlike the earlier two, he dedicates his hunt to Penelope. Everyone, including Penelope, is in shock at Vinter's decision. But before them all, Kalisto smirks, mischief and amusement dancing in his eyes. In 2nd place is Kalisto, the crown prince himself, and just like Vinter, he too dedicates his hunt to Penelope, a gesture that stirs up all sorts of reactions from the crowd. Those relationship rumors from the trial definitely aren't dying down now. But wait a minute, if neither of the male protagonists are in 1st place, then who the heck is the champion? Well, get a load of this! Turns out Penelope didn't need any of Vinter and Kalisto's points because running in 1st place is none other than herself. She is hailed as the hunting competition's champion for successfully hunting the fearsome fire bear. We can only assume giving her the credit was Kalisto's doing. Quite generous of him, actually. Still stuck in a fever dream, Penelope's mind is completely blown away when Kalisto announces her prize. As queen of the hunting competition, she'll be receiving an astounding 100 million gold. As if that wasn't enough, Kalisto also bestows her the crossbow that was taken away from her during the trial. By the end of the day, Penelope is left smiling at the events that have unfolded. Who would have expected that among all the male protagonists, the person who'd have the 2nd highest favorability would be Kalisto? Trust me, girl, even we didn't see that coming. Finally, back at the estate, Fennel is tasked with taking care of Penelope's prizes. Penelope, on the other hand, revels in her luxury. Literally, she's making angels with all her gold. Alas, her enjoyment is short-lived when Reynolds enters her room and informs her about a family dinner. Her displeasure doesn't go unnoticed by her brother. He leaves the choice of attending up to her, yet despite having relayed the message, Reynolds finds himself staying for a while. Looking rather guilty, he explains something to Penelope. It's not that he didn't dedicate his hunt to her, but rather he couldn't. The rules prohibit hunters from dedicating their hunt to fellow family members. Still, he wants to make it up to her. His sincerity is evident, so when Penelope gives him a chance by getting her a rabbit, he immediately jumps at the idea. LOL, pun intended. Leaving, he encourages her one last time to join them later on. And although Reynolds' smiles have convinced her to go, Penelope accidentally sleeps through dinner. Oh, come on, you had one job, Penelope! I guess everyone seems to take the hint, because in the next few days that follow, nobody disturbs Penelope anymore. Now free from her family, Penelope finally decides to go to see Eklies. It's a gloomy and rainy day when she finds him training outside, drenched from head to toe. What Penelope notices, though, is that despite his obvious strength, he has yet to master proper sword skill techniques. You know what they say, a knight without proper training is just as defenseless as a person without a sword. Out of nowhere, Penelope appears before Eklies, and instantly his favorability increases by 2%. Seeing Penelope was already pleasurable enough, but when she hands him a gift, it's as if Eklies' whole system shuts down. Opening the box, his eyes widen in awe at what's inside. A necklace made of ivory and onyx. Back in his homeland in the continent of Capria, only the most noble warriors get to wear the finest jewelry. Penelope's gift absolutely moves him. He's so touched and grateful that his favorability drastically rises to 77%. She's definitely got Eklies wrapped around her finger. But instead of being ecstatic, Penelope gapes in horror as a system notification pops up. It says that from this moment forward, she can no longer view the male protagonist's favorability levels. At this point, the system has basically locked the feature of viewing favorability. Instead of seeing the percentage, all she can see is the gauge's color, which doesn't make a lot of sense, really. But that's not the worst part. The only way she can view a male protagonist's favorability level is if she makes physical contact with them. And pay 2 million gold, too. There's a reason they call this difficult mode. It's getting harder and more capitalistic. Pushing her luck, Penelope tries to view Eklies' favorability. But what she doesn't expect is for the system to deduct it from her current riches, aka the prize she won from the hunting competition. Enraged by the situation, she storms off, cutting her meeting with Eklies short. Eklies, on the other hand, sits there, dumbfounded by her sudden mood swings. Penelope immediately realizes her mistake. She retracts and bids him a proper goodbye, dusting his cheek with a light touch, a gesture that leaves him craving for more. Back in her room, Penelope absolutely loses it. With her current finances, she'll only be limited to checking favorability 49 times. She wallows in despair until Fennel interrupts with a message. The Duke is inviting her to a family luncheon at the greenhouse tomorrow, and before she can protest, Fennel reassures her that nothing will go wrong. We never know. Surprisingly, Penelope accepts the invitation, although she arrives at the luncheon rather late the following day. Just like with Eklies, Ranald and Derrick's favorability levels are locked, and that pisses Penelope to the core. With everyone there, Duke Eckart cuts to the chase. He's gathered everyone to tell them that he wants their family portrait to be painted as soon as possible. In 1 month, Penelope will come of age, and he wants their portrait up on display for everyone to see at the party. Unbeknownst to everyone, the mention of Penelope's coming-of-age ceremony triggers something within her. Anxiety and panic grips her as she realizes she only has a month left to finish the game. If she can't complete it by the time Yvonne returns, she might just lose her chance of going back to the real world. Heck, she could even get stuck in the game and become the villain she was destined to be, which means she'll end up meeting her demise real soon. When the Duke clears his throat and calls for her attention, only then does Penelope realize that she's zoned out of their conversation. Turns out he was asking her what she wanted for her birthday, and to their shock, she tells them she has nothing particular in mind. I bet they're like, who is this imposter? Anyway, they're in for another wave of shock when Penelope changes her mind. Instead of receiving presents, she expresses that she'd rather receive cash and assets, a sentiment that doesn't sit well with her family. Trying to justify her request, she tells them that it's for an emergency fund, but Derrick isn't sold on the idea. As the Duke's successor, he forbids Penelope from having a personal budget and owning private assets, claiming that her spending habits can't be trusted. What a party pooper! A knot forms in Penelope's chest. Dismayed, she excuses herself from lunch, completely ignoring the Duke who tries to reason with her. Retreating back to her room, a sense of dread creeps over Penelope. A chill runs down her spine as the reality of her impending doom looms closer and closer. She really needs to speed things up with Eklies. He's her only hope, after all. Unexpectedly, a knock at the door pulls her from her thoughts. It's the Duke, and he's come to make amends. Unlike Derrick, the Duke is a total marshmallow. He just folds when it comes to Penelope. Eyeing the envelope he's sliding, Penelope's mind is blown. He's just given her the deed and ownership to an emerald mine. According to the Duke, he's been meaning to give that to her. He just didn't think it would come so soon. Yet despite receiving such a gift, Penelope maintains a bittersweet expression, one that her father quickly notices. Laden with guilt, he deduces that she might still be upset. About the luncheon, about the trial, about everything. He may not show it much, but he really does care about her, and not once did he believe she was a bad person. For once, this gets through to Penelope. But it doesn't matter what her father thinks because Derrick seems to be convinced that she's rotten to the core. The Duke sighs. Even he can't deny how critical Derrick is. Heck, he even had to give Penelope the mine behind his son's back. All jokes aside, though, the Duke apologizes to Penelope for everything. Their improved relationship even earns her an additional 10 fame points. Over the next few days, Penelope is swamped with paperwork. Turns out, handling a business isn't as easy as it looks, and it certainly doesn't help that she has to do all this without Derrick knowing too. Seeing Penelope work so actively, Fennel begins to see her in a new light. This responsible and capable side of Penelope may just be his new favorite persona. A few minutes later, Penelope then asks Fennel to relay a message to Eklies. She wants to see him as soon as he finishes training. The day goes by in no time, and Penelope finds herself slipping in and out of naps while waiting for Eklies at the greenhouse. All of a sudden, she opens her eyes to find him hovering inches away from her face, so close that she can feel the warmth of his breath. Normally, this would startle her, but she can't really complain much when she's after his favorability. And speaking of favorability, she reaches out to hold Eklies, just enough to satisfy the physical contact requirement. She's about to pay for a favorability check, but to her dismay, the price has doubled. It's frustrating, but she goes ahead with it anyway. Thankfully, it's still at 81%. Any lower, and I bet she would have regretted paying 4 million gold. Smiling, she tells Eklies why he's been summoned. Like a good master, she intends to keep her promise and remove his shock collar, a gesture that would finally free him from his slave-like treatment. But to her shock, Eklies declines. His logic is simple. As long as he has the shock collar, Penelope will continue to worry and feel sorry for him. She'll never go a day without thinking of him, and that's something that comforts him. And plus, at least she'll know that he'll never cause any trouble. After all, it's not like he's crazy enough to risk getting shocked. At this point, Penelope becomes suspicious. Is this really what Eklies wants? Or is he just putting up an act to manipulate her? Taking her chances, Penelope once again checks Eklies' favorability, this time for 6 million gold. Seeing that his favorability has increased since his little speech, Penelope makes the bold choice of going with the flow. Act or not, she couldn't care less. As long as his favorability keeps increasing, then she can play along. After their little meeting, Penelope heads back inside, where she's intercepted by Fennel. An invitation from the Imperial Palace has arrived, and it's from Kalisto himself. Apparently, he's just found out about the little white lie Penelope uttered during the trial. For someone to boldly drag him into a romantic scandal, Kalisto sure is amused by Penelope's guts. To discuss the whole ordeal, he invites her to come to the palace, and he isn't taking no for an answer. Otherwise, she just might regret her actions. Penelope's blood runs cold as she reads through his letter. There's absolutely no way she's going to accept the invitation. Thankfully for her, Fennel is totally on board with helping her fabricate another illness. You'd think her refusal would be the end of the matter, right? But nope. Dead wrong, because after a few days, the entire Eckart estate erupts in panic when Kalisto shows up unannounced. Jeez, how persistent! Duke Eckart personally greets the Crown Prince at the estate's gates, but it's clear that he isn't so enthusiastic about this surprise visit, especially since it's concerning Penelope. And it doesn't help that Kalisto is calling him his future father-in-law. Inside, Penelope and her maids make haste. They need to transform into the sickest-looking person on the planet. Unfortunately, though, the odds really aren't in Penelope's favor because the Duke still permits Kalisto to see her. Betrayed, Penelope grumbles as she makes her way to the garden to meet with Kalisto. She spots him instantly, and he wastes no time taunting her as his ex-lover. But Kalisto's not what appalls her. Rather, she's more concerned about his favorability gauge. It's literally blaring warning signals in a bright red color. Looks like Kalisto being the backup plan is a burnt bridge. Just then, she's pulled from her thoughts when Kalisto approaches her, seemingly suspicious of her complexion. After what feels like an eternity, he finally admits that she's looking rather pale and sick. But well, that won't stop him from exacting vengeance. After all, he's here for one reason only, to make sure Penelope regrets making a disgrace of him before the whole empire. Uh-oh. Penelope scrambles to explain herself, expressing that everything she said at the trial only resulted in baseless rumors at worst. Kalisto, however, chuckles bitterly. Now everything makes sense. No wonder Penelope just wanted him to spare her life as a reward for saving him. Seeing Penelope inch farther and farther away from him, Kalisto finally decides to loosen up, admitting that he isn't really there to make her pay for her sins. From his pocket, he produces an old scroll, one that leaves Penelope gaping in awe. It's the magical scroll they found in the cave, the original one too, and he's giving it to Penelope. Calm your hearts, ladies, that's not all. He has a second gift prepared too. This gift, though, is more of an apology. You see, despite Penelope's hard work of catching the culprits, the real mastermind, Count Alan, still managed to walk free without any charges. House Kellen, however, wasn't so fortunate, but Penelope need not pity them when she holds the deed to a diamond mine in her hands. The mine was originally Duke Eckart's payment to keep House Kellen from pressing charges on Penelope. But now that the Kellens have been detained, all their assets have been confiscated by the imperial family. And it just so happens that Kalisto feels like giving the mine to her, especially after learning the whole story about their squabble. Apparently, out of curiosity, Kalisto ordered an investigation on what went down between Penelope and Lady Kellen in the past. And boy, was it nasty. Brewing mosquitoes into Penelope's tea? Now that's just messed up. Looking rather proud, Kalisto tells her that she had every right to act the way she did. If it were him, he would have done far worse things. Although he wonders why she never told the Duke about the bullying. It's a question that leaves Penelope silent. She ponders on the answer for a while before she speaks, because how do you even begin to tell someone that you think your own family wouldn't even believe you? Yet to her surprise, Kalisto flashes her a knowing smile. He knows the feeling all too well. Guess she's not the only one with daddy issues here. Butterflies flutter around in Penelope's stomach. Trying to distract herself from her fluster, she tries to decline the gift. It's too valuable, she thinks. Woman, stop rejecting blessings! Thankfully, Kalisto never takes no for an answer. Didn't she once say she loved gems and gold? So he insists that she keep it. Just then, leaves rustle behind them, and Penelope swears she saw Eklies running away. Kalisto's eyes dart between Penelope and the figure of a man getting farther and farther away. Out of nowhere, Kalisto wraps his hand around Penelope's hand, asking if it's common practice for a noble lady to take up acting. Nervous, Penelope tries to excuse herself, but Kalisto stops her. He cups his hands on her cheeks and closes the gap between them, their faces inches apart. Just as he thought, her eyes are filled with exhaustion. Though his features maintain their stone-cold expression, a concerned look flashes in his eyes. In hushed tones, he tells Penelope to stop getting sick. Getting stabbed and poisoned trying to save her would all be in vain if she doesn't live a full life. A ghost of a smile then makes its way to his lips, and for a moment, his hand hovers over Penelope's own lips. It takes a second or two, but he eventually lets her go, insisting that she go and rest. Back at the estate, Penelope feels her heart thump like crazy. That is, until Emily informs her that her makeup is all smudged. Turns out, Kalisto wasn't being a sweetheart. He was just rubbing her makeup to secretly tell her he's caught on to her acts. The following day, Penelope pays Eklies a visit. But to her dismay, she only runs into some knights who degrade both her and Eklies as they ruin the expensive winter clothes Penelope had sent for her personal guard. Unable to take it, she then confronts them head-on. A group of knights freezes after being caught with their nasty remarks. They scramble to justify themselves, but their excuses hold no weight. Noticing the box of clothes meant for Eklies, Penelope orders Fennel to remember their faces and report everything to Derrick. With a firm warning, she drives them away, leaving them in panic. Without wasting time, Penelope heads to Eklies' room and knocks, but no response comes. Though Fennel offers to unlock the door, she refuses, aware that forcing her way in could affect Eklies' perception of her. After sending Fennel away despite his concern, she enters alone. Inside, Eklies lies still beneath a blanket. Penelope approaches cautiously, fearing he may be too ill to continue training. As she turns to leave, he suddenly grips her, stopping her from going. He doesn't appear sick, yet his behavior is unlike anything she remembers. He questions the sincerity of her concern, recalling how she didn't come to him immediately. Penelope explains, but the tension remains. She realizes his affection rate has risen significantly to 86%. Eklies loves her at this point. Eklies presents a handmade flower crown, but his emotions quickly surface, revealing jealousy over the man she was seen with. Penelope's concern shifts to his distress, while the system quietly signals something worse. His affection level is beginning to fall. The drop in affection gnawed at Penelope. Eklies pressed her for answers, and she explained that the man he saw was the Crown Prince, the one linked to the fall of his homeland. As she brushed away his tears, she clarified that the Crown Prince only came to deliver an ancient relic and essential documents. Eklies remained unconvinced, questioning why the Crown Prince had to come personally. Before Penelope could respond fully, his expression darkened. That's the true face of jealousy. Recognizing the tension, Penelope shifted her words, claiming that illness had kept her away. Instantly, Eklies softened. She explained that her condition delayed her visit and that the Crown Prince's presence was only incidental. Guilt overtook him. Eklies wept again, blaming himself for not knowing sooner, questioning his worth in her life. The weight of his vulnerability hung heavy, and Penelope sought to comfort him by wearing the handmade flower crown he had given her. Eklies was captivated, stunned by her appearance. She promised to repay his gift, expecting an increase in affection, yet he refused. The change was unmistakable. His tone carried strain, as if he had previously forced himself to accept gifts. Material offerings no longer mattered. What Eklies truly desired was to be her one and only knight. Even constrained by his slave status, he wanted to wield her sword properly, to honor her and uphold the promise Penelope had entrusted to him. The sudden change in Eklies halts Penelope's thoughts. He has always been cold and expressionless, yet now his gaze carries emotion. Penelope offers her pinky, asking him to promise he won't skip sword training without telling her. Eklies sealed his promise. The system responds. His affection rises to 88%. Whether he succeeds in training no longer matters. What matters is granting what he wants. That is her answer. Outside, Fennel waits and informs her that Derrick wishes to meet regarding the earlier incident. In Derrick's office, Penelope immediately notices a strange pink, almost mystical bird. Silence fills the room. Their first meeting alone since the hunting tournament. Derrick brings up the knight's misconduct and asks what punishment she wants. The question catches her off guard. His concern feels unfamiliar. She questions why her opinion matters now, but Derrick insists it does. Instead of punishment, she makes a request to a swordsmanship instructor for Eklies. Derrick refuses. To him, a slave cannot become a knight. He tells her to stop playing around and offers a list of proper guards instead. To Derrick, it is childish. To her, it is survival. Derrick assures her Eklies will not be banished. He insists on distance to avoid rumors, but Penelope stands firm. Does he truly believe her reputation has already fallen so low that she must now live by fear of whispers? Derrick grits his teeth, warning that Marquis Ellen may target her next. If he is truly concerned for her safety, then Eklies must be trained, not replaced by someone who does not truly care whether she lives or dies. Derrick agrees to Penelope's request, but only on one condition. No sword instructor may be appointed within the estate, as Eklies' origins in a defeated nation make it politically risky. Penelope recalls the original timeline, where the Duke had trusted Eklies and briefly wonders what might have happened if she had refused him. But she dismisses the thought. Derrick promises to find an external trainer, and Penelope accepts, grateful. A soft sound from the birdcage draws her attention. Derrick shows her a ploponium, a rare bird believed to be a divine messenger whose unfertilized eggs become priceless gems, the very ones Penelope once wished for. Unexpectedly, he offers it to her. Confused by his rare generosity, she wonders if it stems from guilt or compensation. Derrick admits he just didn't want anyone else to have it. Penelope declines, the responsibility too heavy, but agrees to visit it occasionally. In the ensuing silence, Derrick speaks of inheriting the title, protecting the family, and safeguarding her as a form of apology. The real Penelope is gone. The apology is long overdue. But Penelope knows that apology isn't meant for her, so she walks past him, leaving only one truth behind, that she expects nothing. Not from the family, not from Derrick. Before leaving, Derrick stops Penelope, reminding her about the Emerald Mine and advising her to use the butler as her representative to avoid being underestimated, even offering sorcerer assistance if needed. Penelope is surprised. She hadn't expected him to know about the mine, and she can no longer see his affection score. Later, she brings Eklies a sword instructor, Sir Sven, a retired vice captain. Eklies beams with happiness, and Penelope places a flower by his ear as a small farewell. Flustered, he promises to train hard. Distracted, Penelope forgets to check his affection score. Seems like someone was distracted by the intense gaze. Back in her room, Fennel reports that the knights from before have been dismissed. Derrick has filed charges against them for slandering nobility, possibly leading to imprisonment. Penelope finds the punishment excessive, yet can't understand what drove Derrick to act this way. Another report follows. 3 high-quality emeralds from her mine were bought at triple the price by a single unfamiliar merchant. Then comes a name, the Guild of the White Rabbit. Penelope freezes. In a separate room, Penelope wonders, is Vinter involved? She decides to meet him to return his handkerchief and learn the truth. Whoosh! A burst of blue and white energy fills the room, sending her back. The handkerchief suddenly speaks and decides to summon her in a guild. Penelope crumples it in annoyance. Why can't they just send a normal letter like everyone else? A new episode begins. Would you like to teleport to the guild? Penelope froze, realizing she had been following the gameplay all along. She needed to meet the guild characters. But first, a disguise. Derrick had taken her mask, yet she needs to wear a disguise, expecting Vinter might do the same. Wrapping the magic gem around her wrists, she transformed into a protective camouflaging magic that turned her into a dark-haired boy in a regal suit, blending Derrick's and her features, and giving her a surprisingly attention-grabbing appearance. If she were a man, he would be swarmed by ladies. In front of the guild door, Penelope knocked, but no one answered. A voice called out from behind, demanding she identify herself. Vinter and a masked lion kid raised their staffs and wands threateningly. Purple, Penelope thought, spotting Vinter in his white rabbit disguise. Vinter, still unaware, ordered her to step back. Penelope hurriedly explained she had received a message from the white rabbit. Vinter paused, confused, then lowered Round's staff. Inside, Penelope marveled at the flying teacups serving them magically. Vinter broke the silence, noting how quickly she had arrived. He pointed at her gem bracelet. She explained it was necessary. Vinter admitted he had wanted to send a rabbit to relay his message, but she was frightened the last time he did. Penelope accused him of spying, whereas Vinter denied it. He insisted he could only talk to animals and make inanimate objects talk. Hearing enough, Penelope preferred proper letters from now on. Her question lingered. How did Vinter know she owned the emerald mine? The bunny-masked man explains he met his father during a hunting contest and bonded over Southeast gemstones. He reasoned that if it were her father or brother, she wouldn't prioritize anyone else. But why would a high-ranking aristocrat sign a contract with her? Vinter chuckled, amused. Plainly because he is interested in you. Vinter explained what made Penelope unique, saying the contract was the only way to connect with her. She wondered if knowing her fully would even matter. He pressed, claiming no other wizard matched his skills, urging her to trust him. Though skeptical, Penelope understood the contract would protect her role until the real daughter appeared. She placed a separate contract for her diamond mine. Penelope knew her family didn't know about the mine, and she knows the emerald mine isn't completely hers. In the game, Vinter would eventually meet the real lady at her coming-of-age ceremony, but for now, the contractual bond protected her role, raising Vinter's pay to 60% while feeling conflicted about their lack of real trust. Vinter accepted, agreeing to more encounters for his curiosity and lowering his pay to 30%. Penelope agreed, shaking Vinter's hand. Unknowingly, this action raised Vinter's favorability to 52%. Penelope noticed Vinter's hands felt warmer the longer he held hers. Once released, she hurried out, asking Vinter to take her to Hamilton Street, noting extra pay for his service. Meanwhile, Vinter met the other wizards, confirming Roan had made all arrangements and noting the guests' changed appearance, but stressed caution in the harsh world for wizards. Under an oak tree, butterflies unexpectedly delivered a letter from Vinter, specifying the contract she needed to complete and instructed her to meet at Hamilton Street the next day at 10 o'clock with the contract signed. Though structured like a date, the strict conditions left Penelope unsettled. The next day, she ordered her maid to keep others from her room. Walking through Hamilton Street in a baby blue dress, she reached an alley where a man in a rabbit mask and the masked lion child awaited. As they met, Penelope wondered where they would go as the setup reminded her of a date. The masked child laughed and said they'd be serving bread. It's okay. Assumptions happen sometimes. The system auto-accepted the task of volunteering to share bread within 5 seconds, leaving her frustrated yet aware that the episode had already begun. Vinter explained that Traten had suffered the most damage from the war, making it a priority for aid. Penelope questioned why she was even there, but pushed the thought aside as they moved through the inner town. The town was eerily silent, abandoned where it should have been bustling with fishing and trade. Roan recognized her despite her disguise, explaining he remembered her voice from a previous visit when she had posed as an old man. Penelope expressed her gratitude, but insisted on being called by her true name. Roan introduced himself as a lion enthusiast, which accounted for his mask. Aw, how cute! As they walked, Vinter instructed Roan to stay alert for anything unusual. Penelope observed from a short distance as Vinter conjured magic, instantly creating a stall display of bread. They were to serve soup as well, while Vinter personally handed out the bread to the children. Penelope noticed that all the recipients were orphans. Vinter explains intact families do not come for free meals. She saw a long-haired boy take bread repeatedly, 5 times in succession before running off. Vinter explained it was unwise to give too much at once, as some children might be storing food at home. After a brief silence, Penelope reflected that she understood the situation all too well. Yet she resolved to give them more, reasoning that if she were in their place, she would have starved looking for bread on the ground, just enough to fill her stomach for several days. Vinter, in a trance-like state, remarked that he knew someone else, a woman who had once shared the same compassion. Penelope concludes that Vinter has already met Yvonne through volunteering. She wonders what role she plays now. Playing it cool, reasoning that feeding people today does not mean they won't starve tomorrow. Eating too much at once could even make them sick. She lets Vinter observe her, allowing him to judge what kind of person she is. There is still no thrill if Penelope tells everything to him. As they walk toward the outskirts, Penelope notices mana users being monitored and sent away. Vinter explains that Traten has been devastated by constant attacks from the Holy Nation. Layla, whose goal is to eliminate sorcerers and dominate the continent. Vinter suddenly places a star-shaped magic necklace in Penelope that detects poison. She recognizes it as a precaution tied to past events with Yvonne. The system alerts her that Vinter's affection rises slightly. They continue serving bread and soup, mostly to orphan children. Penelope notices how Vinter's efforts bring even a small sense of hope. He leaves to meet the mayor, while she remains, exhausted but quietly satisfied. She notices Roan playing with the children. Roan asks for permission to play at the beach, but Penelope declined. Growing drowsy, she slept, but after a brief moment of rest, they were gone. The system triggers a new mission. Panic sets in. Penelope searches the empty streets, asking around, but no one knows anything. Fear tightens her chest, not just for Roan, but for Vinter's trust. She steadies herself. The beach is the only place left. Penelope raced across the beach, calling Roan's name. In the distance, she saw children bound by the Holy Nation, and Layla being forced into a teleportation circle. Panic surged as she shouted for them to stop. The system offered an option. She accepted. Bang! A thunderbolt struck, its force overwhelming even her. She called it repeatedly, driving the captors back. Rushing toward Roan and the children, a captor lunged at her, but Roan teleported her to safety. She screamed as she watched Roan and the others vanish. Poor Roan! Vinter arrived, restraining her frantic pleas to pursue them, urging her to return home. The system confirmed her failure. He explained that Roan had been trained for such situations, that children with mana are often targeted, and that safeguards were in place. As he spoke, Penelope felt increasingly replaceable, powerless to change the outcome. Her thoughts spiral. In a shaken voice, she wonders if she is simply meant to accept everything, to forget what happened, even the contract. At the same time, Vinter studies her closely, questioning everything else entirely. How is she able to use magic? Vinter reveals the necklace detects mana, not just poison, and that he has sensed a strange energy from Penelope before. She realizes their meeting was never a date, but an investigation. He explains he wants to understand her power and its connection to the Holy Nation, as children with mana are being sacrificed. Penelope, unsettled, listens as Vinter apologizes. Though she doesn't fully understand her abilities, he trusts her innocence. The system intervenes, assigning her the quest to find the missing children or face a penalty to Vinter's affection. Aww, Penelope cannot risk losing Vinter's affection any longer! Conflicted but determined, Penelope chooses to stay and help, driven by her conscience. She insists she can be useful, and Vinter accepts her decision. Holding her hand, he teleports them to Soleil. At the outskirts of the Arcana archipelago, they arrive at a cave where Roan is being held. Despite sensing danger, Penelope follows Vinter inside. Noticing his lack of a plan and his bloodshot eyes, she realizes the depth of his worry while questioning why the Holy Nation is targeting children with mana. Vinter revealed the grim truth that the Holy Nation uses children to cast spells, stealing mana from sorcerers to control and brainwash them. Their ultimate goal is to eliminate all sorcerers and revive Layla, a being, not a true goddess, but from a minority who consumes life force to wield magic. A man from Layla once sacrificed himself to create a massive magic circle in Kalta, storing power to conquer the world. Penelope struggled to reconcile this with what she thought she knew. Vinter explained that history had been twisted. Ancient sorcerers had sealed Layla's people at great cost, even cursing them. Yet over time, the truth was forgotten. Layla's followers' crimes were blamed on sorcerers, leaving their descendants shunned. Vinter admitted he survived only because of his noble status, and must stop them or the world would fall. Terrible! The sorcerers are definitely fighting an unfair battle! Suddenly, Penelope's pendant flared yellow. Vinter vanished as the cave split, separating them. His warning about demonic beasts echo in her mind, just as the system assigned a new mission, plunging her into danger alone. Bang! Spells appear, fire and water. Penelope fights through the beasts, pushing forward. But then a massive creature emerges. Her spells barely affect it. For a moment, everything stops. Is this the end? A sharp command cut through the air, and the beast collapsed before it could strike. Steel gleamed, and Penelope's life was spared in an instant. Her savior emerged, the crown prince, with blood staining his hand. Instinct pulled her forward to help, though his teasing about her healing magic remained unspoken. That's a lot of love interests over here, oh my. The prince's eyes probed her in the shadowed cave, sharp and unreadable. Penelope explained her mission about the missing child, the Holy Nation. It was her choice to volunteer. The prince was way shocked hearing she's volunteering for the missing child. The crown prince offered his hand. Without hesitation, she took it, and together they moved deeper into the darkness. Penelope felt something shift. He no longer felt distant or unreliable. Penelope sensed he would not leave her behind. The system's invisible guidance appeared, leading the way, while a single thought lingered in her mind. Did the prince ever truly wonder about her magic? The prince shows little surprise at Penelope's abilities, accepting her as someone full of surprises, from archery to spellcasting, and claims he holds no prejudice against sorcerers. Penelope is that amazing? Penelope remains unconvinced. Testing him, she suggests the possibility of being aligned with the Holy Nation. The prince only laughs, dismissing Layla's followers as fanatics, nothing like her. He recalls the incident of a man dying while attempting to open a portal in the Imperial Palace, something he believes is tied to Layla, and a matter he intends to investigate. The prince explains further that Layla's people raise beasts and drain captives of mana, using them as fuel. When Penelope pushes again, asking what he would do if she were truly one of them, his answer unsettles her. He speaks of using such power to tear down the empire itself, calling it rotten, envisioning a future where nobles fall and wealth is returned to the starving. His tone is calm, but the intent is ruthless. The prince definitely follows the end justifies the means motto. Penelope quickly denies any connection, brushing it off. At that moment, Vinter appears. Thinking quickly, she calls him Winston and explains him as a fellow volunteer. Though suspicious, the prince allows it. As they move deeper, Penelope's heart races, and amid the chaos, she wants to escape the game entirely. The goal is to leave this tangled world behind and survive. Suddenly, a beam of blue light cuts through the cave. Sharp, unnatural, and far too close. And that's it for today, guys. What did you think? As always, don't forget to like the video and comment for the next part so we know you want more. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications for updates. See you in the next one!